Chapter 2686. 2686 Surrounded. Chapter 2686. 2686 Surrounded. 2686 Surrounded. The ninth heaven celestial kings would naturally not take this kind of threat seriously, to say nothing of the fact that Ling Han was only a seventh heaven, even if he was a pseudo-heavenly venerate, so what? About 10 of them working together would be able to block him, and when more than 30 peak stage ninth heaven celestial kings moved at the same time, even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would shudder a bit. This brat is unreasonable. Looks like we can only take him down. That's right, take him down. If we do not teach this kind of person a good lesson, it will damage the prestige of the Martial Academy. We cannot allow a bad apple like this to ruin the image of the Martial Academy. These celestial kings all showed their ugliness here. Regulations were being channeled, and they were about to make their move. They were arrogant enough to actually make a move in full public in the Martial Academy. They were unafraid because they all had the backing of heavenly venerates, and they had long since given prior notice to the 2 heavenly venerates that were presently overlooking the Martial Academy. It was fine as long as Ling Han returned to the Martial Academy unharmed at the end. Of course, that was the bottom line as well. If disciples were injured under their watch, that would be truly inexcusable as well. It was not an assault from hysteria after all. Ling Han's eyes swept over them, and he said, "Aside from those kids behind you, you all don't belong to the Martial Academy. Am I right?" "So what about it?" These ninth heaven celestial kings all responded disdainfully. Ling Han revealed a grin filled with killing intent. "In that case, it will be fine even if I kill all of you." "How dare you?" These ninth heaven celestial kings all rebuked coldly. A seventh heaven celestial king actually dared declare that he would kill all of them. They really had no idea where he got his courage from. "Ling Han, do you need help?" Du Shi's voice rang out. He stood proudly in midair, making no move to conceal his peak stage ninth heaven aura. Who knew how much stronger he was than other ninth heaven celestial kings? It was extremely possible that his evolution index had already reached 12. If you do, I do not mind interfering either." Can you also appeared. He crossed his arms over his chest, his eyes turning red. His killing intent seemed to have already been ignited. "I am here as well." AMU appeared at another side. The 3 great big shots appeared at the same time, and they all seemed very unconcerned. They did not take these ninth heaven celestial kings to heart at all. Ling Han laughed and said, "Thank you. However, they are just some trash. I am more afraid that there are not enough of them for me to kill." Damn! Those ninth heaven celestial kings were all fuming with rage. It was one thing that AMU and company were so domineering. They were all famous freaks, and it was publicly acknowledged that they were capable of becoming heavenly venerates. The only question was just how much time they needed. But who did Ling Han think he was? He was nothing but a seventh heaven celestial king. Did he think that just because he managed to make He Yufeng bleed, he was already a pseudo-heavenly venerate himself? No way. "Brat, let me teach you the proper way to behave." A ninth heaven celestial king jumped out and then grabbed out at Ling Han. This strike was extremely direct, using the ninth heaven celestial king's cultivation level to overwhelm Ling Han. There were 9 heavens in the celestial king tier, every single step forwards as difficult as ascending the heavens. Cultivation level was the greatest advantage a celestial king could have because the regulations they could extract at different cultivation levels were completely different. Ling Han stood motionlessly and waited until the assault of this ninth heaven celestial king almost reached him before he finally threw a punch. But when this fist moved, it was as fast as a streak of light. Pum! His fist pierced through his opponent's offensive, the force of the punch penetrating deeply. And when the expression of that celestial king changed dramatically, the force of the blow had already reached him. With crushing power, he was instantly sent flying. Wah! That celestial king collapsed onto the ground, throwing up blood continuously. Instantly, a dead silence fell. What's going on? A seventh heaven celestial king actually punched so hard that it caused a ninth heaven celestial king to throw up blood. Eighth heaven. When Ling Han moved, 8 ribbons of iridescent light immediately appeared around him. Not even 10 million years have passed, and he has already advanced from the 7th heaven to 8th heaven. He truly is a freak. But even if he is an 8th heaven celestial king, to defeat a 9th heaven celestial king with a single punch, this is really too inconceivable. The expressions of those 9th heaven celestial kings all changed drastically. They had never imagined that Ling Han was actually so powerful. This was a 9th heaven celestial king. It was extremely hard to break through to the 9th heaven. No matter how freakish Ling Han was, he would also be stuck at the 9th heaven for a period of time. And after he crossed this threshold, his strength would also spike. Thus, there were definitely no weaklings among those who could advance to the 9th heaven. They were all elites that had reached the standards required. Even such big shots like AMU and Du Shi would only be able to oppose 4 to 5 9th heaven celestial kings at the same time. How could Ling Han be so strong? 8 Mu and the other big shots all showed hints of surprise. The present Ling Han was already completely equipped with the qualifications to stand against them. Then, wouldn't Ling Han be able to suppress them once he broke through? Just how was this brat cultivating? The reason was very simple. That was because Ling Han was using void particle energy to temper himself. He was technically a pseudo-heavenly venerate himself, but he was still limited to the 8th heaven. It naturally was no issue for him to match a peak stage 9th heaven celestial king. At this moment, all the 9th heaven celestial kings felt grim. They finally knew that it was not because Ling Han enjoyed boasting that he dared to say such a thing, but rather that he really did have the strength, and this strength reached a level far beyond anyone's imagination. There is no need to worry. There are more than 30 peak stage, 9th heaven celestial kings here. As long as we all work together, it is still a small matter for us to take this brat down. A 9th heaven celestial king of the Yun clan said. That's right. More celestial kings nodded. An 8th heaven celestial king was only just an 8th heaven celestial king. Faced with a force like them, even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would have to take a few steps back. Ling Han took a deep breath and said evenly, "Today I will use the heads of 9th heaven celestial kings like you to establish my reputation. I truly would like to see if there would be others that would dare to stretch out their paws towards me in future." Shameless talk. All the 9th heaven celestial kings were exploding with fury. Ling Han did not waste any more words. He moved. Pum! Exerting force from his feet, he stomped on the ground, and his whole person instantly shot into the skies at an extraordinary speed. Don't even think of running. All the 9th heaven celestial kings hurriedly set off in hot pursuit, fearing that Ling Han would escape. Ling Han was all alone, but there were many 9th heaven celestial kings. It was definitely impossible that they all had the same speed. Furthermore, to prevent Ling Han from escaping, the faster celestial kings would naturally race out at full speed, not daring to hold the slightest bit back. In this manner, the over 30 celestial kings instantly became a long line of people. It was at this moment that Ling Han suddenly made an about-turn. He suddenly halted, and then charged back downwards, his fists waving furiously. The 9 transformations divine scroll was already being channeled, and with the present force of Ling Han's fists, even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would have to sustain considerable injury if they were hit. How could the foremost celestial king expect that Ling Han would actually dare to turn around and charge back towards him? He did not have any time to dodge at all. He hurriedly concentrated all his power into his hands, which were wrapped with great Tao as he rushed forth to meet Ling Han's incoming offensive. Pum! They exchanged blows once, and it was visible that the hands of that celestial king had instantly been crushed from the impact, turning into shreds of blood and flesh that flew in all directions. Moreover, his skin was rippling like the waves of water. Pung, pung, pung. His arms looked like they were each an open umbrella, leaving behind only a skeletal frame as blood and flesh were flying out from the impact in an arc. Ah! That celestial king screamed out in pain. This injury was really too serious. And with this delay, the other celestial kings also caught up, and they all directed their respective attacks at Ling Han. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh. He was only at the 8th heaven, after all, and was not a genuine pseudo-heavenly venerate. Even if he had prepared for this attack fully and carefully, he had only caused serious injury to his target, but could not kill him with a single punch. Chapter 2687. 2687 Killing 9th Heaven Celestial Kings. Chapter 2687. 2687 Killing 9th Heaven Celestial Kings. 2687 Killing 9th Heaven Celestial Kings. But the people who saw this scene from below were absolutely stupefied. Although Ling Han had once knocked back a 9th Heaven Celestial King with a single strike, it was possible that that Celestial King had been careless and had not gone all out. However, the current situation was different. Everyone already knew how freakish Ling Han was, and yet the opponent was still injured by a single strike from Ling Han, which meant that Ling Han's strength was insane. However, the 30-odd Celestial Kings had already caught up and surrounded him. It's over now. Having fallen into this encirclement, it's impossible for Ling Han to escape. Unless he is a pseudo-heavenly venerate. 10 Celestial Kings at the peak of the 9th heaven could only take on a pseudo-heavenly venerate and just barely manage a tie. But if one really wanted to bury a pseudo-heavenly venerate, it would be completely impossible to do so without 100 or so Celestial Kings at the peak of the 9th heaven. Hence, it would have been naturally easy for a pseudo-heavenly venerate to break through such a siege. But in Ling Han's case, it was impossible no matter what. Unless the 2 lords in charge of the Martial Academy take action. That's impossible. These 9th heaven Celestial Kings dare to take action publicly. Obviously, they must have already given them prior notice. As long as they don't seriously injure Ling Han. Below them, Yun Aokong and the other young people kept sneering, expressing delight as they were finally going to see the devil who tortured them pay the price. AMU, Dushi, and Kinyu looked at each other, and all of them frowned slightly. They were thinking, how would they resolve such a predicament if it were them? Confronting the enemies forcefully would definitely lead to adverse consequences. Even if one could kill off a few Celestial Kings, one would eventually be overwhelmed. What was Ling Han to do? Simple. With a loud battle cry, he fought wildly without any reservations. Reckless, too reckless. Wasn't this accelerating his defeat? Boom! All the 9th heaven Celestial Kings launched their attacks together. The regulations circulated dazzlingly, and the regulations of the great Tao exploded with such monstrous power that even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would probably frown, right? Ling Han threw punches to counter the attacks, but there were too many attacks. Some of the attacks were neutralized by him, while some were not, and they hit him. However, a terrifying scene appeared. These attacks that hit Ling Han's body splattered into brilliant rays of light, but they couldn't break through his defense. What? All the Celestial Kings were stunned. This was mind-blowing. What kind of defense did this brat possess? It was practically supernatural. Indestructible Celestial King physique. Having cultivated such a physique, even if all the 9th heaven Celestial Kings blasted him together, it still wouldn't cause any wounds. Only a pseudo-heavenly venerate could cause damage to this kind of physique. So, what did Ling Han have to fear? He rampaged through the group of Celestial Kings and launched attacks arbitrarily. He didn't need to be concerned about defense at all. Below, everyone who was witnessing all this was dumbstruck. he actually possessed such a supernatural physique? Perhaps it wouldn't lack by much even when compared to Heavenborn's. Perhaps the defense of Heavenborn would be slightly stronger, but the question was, would the battle prowess of Heavenborn be able to tear through Ling Han's defense? It was fine as long as it was useful enough. Ling Han shouted and punched furiously with both fists. Not only were these forces unappreciative of his contributions, they even blamed him for the destruction of the Celestial King graveyard. This made him extremely angry. In his opinion, these people ought to be thrown into the realm battlefield and fend for themselves or perish on their own. Well then, let him clean them up now. Ling Han delivered blows without any qualms. Within just 30 minutes, more than a dozen Celestial Kings were injured by him. However, as Ling Han couldn't keep channeling the 9 transformations Divine Scroll or the 5 elements lightning technique all the time, these Celestial Kings were only slightly injured. He wasn't very satisfied. He had originally planned to kill a few of them. However, such battle prowess stunned each and every one of them. Was Ling Han a pseudo-heavenly venerate? Being besieged by more than 39th Heaven's Celestial Kings, not only was he not suppressed, he injured more than a dozen Celestial Kings instead. There was no one else with such battle prowess. Unleash your ultimate technique. Those Celestial Kings flew into rage due to humiliation and felt that their faces were hot with embarrassment. The fact that so many Celestial Kings had joined forces to besiege an 8th Heaven's Celestial King already made them lose face, and they were even injured by their opponent. In the future, how could any of them be able to hold their head high? A dozen or more Celestial Kings continued to tie up Ling Han, and the other Celestial Kings began launching ultimate attacks to destroy Ling Han in one fell swoop. This was a shameless move, but very effective. A dozen or more Celestial Kings could detain even a pseudo-heavenly venerate, so of course they could block Ling Han as well. Therefore, Ling Han could only look helplessly at those Celestial Kings launching powerful attacks, but could do nothing at all to stop them. Subdue him. 7 Celestial Kings took the lead in gathering power and blasted out terrifying attacks. Boom, boom, boom. More Celestial Kings launched powerful attacks to suppress Ling Han. The endless radiance shone brightly and dispersed in a dazzling manner, like beautiful fireworks, but all the people watching the battle were thinking the same thing. Such a fierce attack had better not kill Ling Han, as that would be a big problem, and the Lin clan might appear. What kind of existence was the Lin clan? With a 7th tier heavenly venerate in charge. Even if Lin Luo would not appear personally, Zhou Lin Xiaoyang, or Chu Hao could just walk out and defeat 99% of the Genesis world. Who could afford to provoke them? The radiance of the attacks dissipated, and what could be seen in the center of the battle zone was a streak of golden light transforming into a spherical shape. Ling Han. He had activated the indestructible Heaven Scroll and directly blocked the powerful attacks of the Celestial Kings. He was practically unscathed. He was still injured. There were wounds on his arms and lower abdomen, but they were only minor injuries. After all, there were about 30 Celestial Kings at the peak of the 9th Heaven who had blasted powerful attacks simultaneously, so even indestructible Heaven Scroll wasn't able to prevent him from getting any injury. However, such injuries were naturally trivial, and it was impossible for them to affect his battle prowess. They had to be seeing things. All the Celestial Kings were numb with shock. Such defensive power practically made them feel hopeless. There was absolutely no solution. Ling Han's killing intent was blazing, and he finally took out the divine demon sword. If he wanted to break through the defenses of these Celestial Kings and start killing them, it was absolutely impossible to do it with just his own strength. Then he would use the most supreme, precious tool. Ha ha ha. When they saw Ling Han taking out such a weapon, all the 9th Heaven's Celestial Kings laughed out loud. Did you take out something so tattered just for the fun of it? They had not used any celestial tool. Firstly, it was because divine metal was rare, and it was not possible that every single person could obtain a piece. Secondly, they wanted to capture Ling Han, so they naturally would not use any celestial tools. Otherwise, it was possible that he would be killed or injured severely, which wasn't their original intention. Just now, they were shocked because all their powerful attacks were blocked by Ling Han, but now they were laughing hilariously. Ling Han also laughed. Now, these people were laughing, but they would be crying later. He took a step. His body art exploded, and his speed was so great he was already in front of one person. He slashed out with his sword. Now all these celestial kings knew that his body art was amazing, so they moved in groups of two. When one person was being attacked, the other person would help to cope with it. Hence, two great celestial kings simultaneously sent out attacks to counter Ling Han. Pooh! Cold light dazzled, and the 9 heavens shook. Although the two celestial kings had blasted out their attacks, in the midst of the swirling of the cold light, they were undoubtedly cut in half, slashed at the waist like they were nothing. This, what was going on here? Even if the tattered and broken sword was a celestial tool, 9th heaven celestial kings also stood at the peak of the regulations. With them entwined in great Tao, not even a celestial tool could kill them. But with one slash, both celestial kings were cut in half. This was too ridiculous, wasn't it? After a long time, someone finally stuttered with great difficulty, Heavenly venerate tool. Chapter 2688. 2688 regarded as a great emperor. Chapter 2688. 2688 regarded as a great emperor. 2688 regarded as a great emperor. Heavenly venerate tool, supreme might. Ling Han stood with his sword in hand. It was speckled with rust like a knife that had been kept for a long time in a woodshed. But who would dare to underestimate this sword now? This was a supreme precious tool, and killing celestial kings was like child's play. So what if Ling Han's strength was low? Even if it was a 10-year-old child holding a peerless divine sword, the consequences of an adult taking it on point blank would still only cause him grievous injuries. Furthermore, Ling Han's strength wasn't feeble at all, and not in the least inferior to the peak of the 9th heaven. In fact, he could even suppress them in reverse. For a while, blood rained from the sky, mourning the passing of the two celestial kings. All the celestial kings were trembling. They had never thought that the situation would have developed to such a state. Now, do you all feel the pain? Ling Han said menacingly, and he slashed out again without the slightest hesitation. Since he had already started killing, why would he restrain himself anyway? He wouldn't mess with people voluntarily, but if anyone were to mess with him, he would hit them until they experienced bone-deep pain. Kill! Ling Han burst out with the power of body art, and his speed was astonishing. He was slashing out with the divine demon sword in hand, not needing any technique at all. This was the invincibility of an ultimate weapon. Immediately, the 30-odd celestial kings fled in all directions. There was already an example laid out in front of them. Two great 9th heaven celestial kings were easily cut into halves easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. When the destructive power of the supreme precious tool swept past them, any celestial king would only be killed on the spot. Who would want to be the third one? They were originally just an unruly mob, and naturally they would be united when they had the upper hand. But in the face of danger, they would naturally care only for themselves, with no regard to the life or death of others. However, Ling Han was even faster. He caught up with one, slashed out with the divine demon sword. And sure enough, this celestial king was cut in half. Blood splattered all over, and once again triggered a great natural calamity. The last time Ling Han had started killing like this, he had depended on the Black Tower for a power boost to slaughter many celestial kings in the foreign realm. After so many years had passed, he could finally slaughter celestial kings with his own strength. Moreover, they were all 9th heaven celestial kings, and their bearing was on a different level completely. After climbing in the world of martial arts for so many years, Ling Han had finally reached the pinnacle of the celestial path and possessed the qualifications to look down on the rest of the world. He could be regarded as a great emperor. Ling Han kept up his hot pursuit, and the awful screaming continued. He caught up with one celestial king after another, and they were each slashed by his sword. With his strength and the power of the divine demon sword, no one could block any of the sword's attacks. However, by the time Ling Han had killed the 11th person, the remaining celestial kings had already escaped into the distance, and it was impossible to catch up to them. However, he had killed 11 celestial kings in one battle, and scared off the remaining 20 or so, and they were all celestial kings at the peak of the 9th heaven at that. Wasn't this enough? He's the strongest celestial king by far, no? Absolutely. Even if He Yufeng were to come over, he wouldn't succeed. He would only be beaten up badly and flee in disgrace. It's not that He Yufeng is weak, but that the Heavenly Venerate tool is too powerful. Who would have thought that Ling Han would actually take out a Heavenly Venerate tool, one so incomparably domineering that it resolved the situation and firmly established his status as a great emperor of celestial kings? After this battle, it is likely that there won't be another celestial king who would dare to challenge Ling Han. AMU and the others also shook their heads. If it was a fair fight, they would naturally not be afraid of Ling Han. However, if it was a celestial king with a Heavenly Venerate tool in hand, even they would be helpless. This battle had far-reaching consequences. The noble clans involved were all trembling. They didn't expect Ling Han's strength to be so powerful. Which of them would dare to cause trouble to Ling Han again? More than 10 ninth heaven celestial kings had died in vain, who asked them not to be disciples of the martial academy. If the Heavenly Venerates in the realm battlefield wouldn't return, Ling Han would really be able to do anything he liked in the whole realm, and probably even pseudo-Heavenly Venerates might not be able to suppress him. Right. As Ling Han's figure descended, he cast a glance at Yun Aokong and the others and said lightly, "Don't worry, I won't touch any of you. As long as you don't take the initiative to provoke me, you will remain under the protection of the Martial Academy's rules." Only then did Yun Aokong and the others breathe a sigh of relief, feeling the sensation of cold sweat on their foreheads. "But all of you will report the location of your ancestral grounds," Ling Han added. What did this guy intend to do? He wouldn't charge towards their home bases, right? Why the delay? Ling Han glared at them. Yun Aokong and the others dared not say anything else, and quickly revealed the whereabouts of their respective clans. As a matter of fact, they couldn't believe it. Would Ling Han really dare to make a move against their clans? One ought to know that they were all Heavenly Venerate level forces, and their background was extremely powerful. It wasn't something that a puny 8th Heaven Celestial King could even imagine. Once they had left, AMU and the others came over. "Junior Brotherling, it seems that you are stuck at a bottleneck before the 9th Heaven." Dushi spoke first. "I have been there. This level is very hard to describe. Some people have passed through it after tens of thousands of years, while there are others who still remain at the same level for millions and millions of years. Furthermore, the higher one's talent, the more difficult it is to break through. This is a sign that heaven and earth is targeting you." Ling Han nodded. Given heaven and earth's hindrance, of course it would be beset with difficulties. "We have also been stuck at the peak of the 9th Heaven for too long. We intend to go to the Burst Cloud volcano for training. It is an absolutely dangerous place where danger lurks at every step. You can come with us. Perhaps you might find an opportunity for breakthrough." AMU spoke as well. Ling Han thought for a while. "When are you leaving?" "Just in the next few days." "Then you all can go ahead first. I still have some matters to deal with. Once I'm done, I'll meet up with all of you at the Burst Cloud volcano." All right. AMU and the others took their leave, and Ling Han returned to his abode. He was planning his itinerary as he wanted to make a trip to visit the forces that had besieged him just now, and have them provide him with an explanation for this matter. So he was an easy target to bully, was he? The over 30 celestial kings came from a total of 9 forces. He believed that this was only a small part of the forces that had interfered with the black market chain of profits at the celestial king graveyard. The other forces might have yet to come to settle accounts with Ling Han, or they had yet to make a move. Ling Han couldn't care less. He only knew that if anyone held out a knife to him, he would return the favor with his fist fiercely. A short while later, the large black dog arrived. "Brett, you are so powerful." His eyes shone. "Just average," Ling Han replied, smiling. Was the divine demon's sword really successful in upgrading? The large black dog almost couldn't believe it. Ling Han nodded. "That's right." "Great." The large black dog slapped his paws hard and then showed a pitiful expression. "Heavenborn has gone to the realm battlefield. If not, we could go strike a staggering blow tonight." Ling Han laughed heartily. "There are heavenly venerates in charge here. It is too difficult to do bad things under their noses. It's even better that he went to the realm battlefield. As long as we find him, we can do whatever we want." "That's right." The large black dog nodded. "Before that, let's go to settle some accounts," Ling Han said. "Grandpa Dog likes that." The large black dog nodded happily. "With whom are we settling the accounts?" After hearing Ling Han list the names of each of the forces, the large black dog couldn't help but twitch. "Grandpa Dog takes back what he's just said. You should go on your own, as I seem to have diarrhea." These were all heavenly venerate level forces, who knew how terrifying their background could be. He definitely didn't want to go seeking death. "It's all right. All the heavenly venerates are at the realm battlefield. Besides, let's bring Wally with us," Ling Han said with a smile. "Makes sense." The large black dog nodded. Wally's ability to break formations was the best. With him around, their safety would be greatly increased. They went to call on Wally. Wally was reluctant to go at first, but once Ling Han took out 3 pieces of divine metal, he agreed. Chapter 2689. 2689 Debt Collection Begins. Chapter 2689. 2689 Debt Collection Begins. 2689 Debt Collection Begins. The Wang clan had sent over a dozen pieces of divine metal, but Ling Han did not use all of them. Now that the divine metal did not bear much significance to him, it was just appropriate for him to use it to settle the old, outstanding debt to Wally. Having made payment of what was due, Ling Han and the others set off in accordance to the route he had planned out and began their journey to each clan to seek an explanation. The Lu clan was the closest to them, but even with the trio's pace on foot, it took a month's journey to reach the place. They did not directly invade the place. Indeed, the Lu clan had a 3rd tier, heavenly venerate, though he had already gone to the realm battlefield much earlier and would only come back once in a long time, who knew what kind of formation a 3rd tier, heavenly venerate would set up, perhaps one that could even kill a pseudo-heavenly venerate. It would be wise to be cautious. Wally stepped up first and shot out a beam of green light for scanning and checking out the actual situation of the Lu clan. After 100 million years, Wally had also extracted all the energy in the Dimension Scroll, and his conversion efficiency far exceeded that of Ling Han. Ling Han had no idea if Wally's battle prowess had increased, but this scanning ability of his had indeed been improved by few hundredfold, and under the channeling of his intent, green light beamed out for a few hundred meters before becoming transparent in color, like the rays of sunlight, and even a heavenly venerate wouldn't be able to distinguish it. 19 beings with vitality index of about 13,037 beings with a vitality index of about 12,000, Wally said as he was getting a clear picture of the actual situation of the Lu clan. There were only 19 ninth heaven celestial kings, which wasn't enough to fight them. Ling Han sighed ruefully, and then he laughed in spite of himself. 19 ninth heaven celestial kings could just barely manage to block 2 pseudo-heavenly venerates, and in this world where the heavenly venerates wouldn't appear, what was there to worry about? Moreover, even if there was a pseudo-heavenly venerate, how would he dare to offend the Lu clan? Wouldn't he be afraid that the third-tier heavenly venerate of the Lu clan would flip out? "Brat, are we really going to do it?" the large black dog asked. He was still a little terrified. After all, the karmic life heavenly venerable had only been a first-tier heavenly venerate back then, far inferior to the one from Lu clan. Of course. Ling Han nodded. He had neither provoked anyone nor stirred up problems for anyone, and yet these 9 major forces wanted to capture him for concocting alchemical pills. How could he let this slide? Is there any power at the heavenly venerable tier? Ling Han asked Wally. Wally shook his head. No. Since Wally said that there was none, then it had to be so. Come to think of it, that would be about right with the prestige of the third tier heavenly venerate in addition to 99th heaven celestial kings. Would they need anything else? Let's go. Ling Han walked out first. The large black dog hesitated for a moment and followed suit, while only Wally stayed in the same spot and transformed his body into a stone. If it weren't for Ling Han and the large black dog witnessing the transformation with their own eyes, it would be impossible to distinguish him from other stones. "I'm not going," Wally said. "I'm an analytical war soldier, not a combatant. It's better for Grandpa Dog to be in charge of cleaning up the battlefield and wrap things up at the end." The large black dog became terrified. "You're coming with me." Ling Han grabbed the large black dog. It was fine for Wally since he was only helping out, but the large black dog wanted to reap without sowing. "No, don't." The large black dog kicked out his hind legs madly, bearing a miserable expression like he was about to be eaten as dog meat. The two of them, one walking and the other screaming, soon came to the front door of the Lu clan. In fact, this was a city, but it completely belonged to the Lu clan. Although there were some people in the city whose surname wasn't Lu, they were all extended family members of the Lu clan, and they formed the huge structure of the Lu clan together with some servants. There was a guard at the door, and seeing Ling Han dragging a large black dog over, though it was extremely strange, he still dutifully stepped forward and asked, "Who is it?" Ling Han stopped in his tracks and said, "Go inform those who have the authority to speak and decide, and say that Ling Han is here to collect a debt." Debt collection? Coming here to the Lu clan. There were 4 guards at the entrance, and they all sneered when they heard this. What kind of place is the Lu clan? It is a holy place overseen by a heavenly venerate. Are you here to court death? Insolence. A guard jumped out immediately. Without knowing the strength of Ling Han, of course they wouldn't notify the higher-ups. Otherwise, the Lu clan might put up great fanfare, but the visitor could actually be just someone of Mountain River tier. Wouldn't that make Lu clan the laughingstock of the realm? And they would be severely punished. "Take him down!" He made a move and grabbed Ling Han. Ling Han stepped on his foot lightly and the ground suddenly split open, a crack extending from under his foot all the way to the city wall. When it reached the root of the city wall, it didn't stop but continued to move up. Ka! A humongous crack immediately appeared on the city wall, as if it was a mouth bared out in a grin. The guard who made the move earlier stumbled, and his body swayed for a moment before he regained his footing. He stared in horror at the crack around him and turned around following the extension of the crack. When he saw that the city wall was damaged, he was practically scared out of his wits. This city wall had been refined and enhanced by many celestial kings, and it was sufficient to withstand several attacks from high-level celestial kings. But Ling Han just stomped his foot, and the city wall was cracked open. There was no direct attack at all. Wasn't this enough proof of how powerful Ling Han's strength could be? The 4 guards trembled simultaneously. This was a really overwhelming strength. It was just that they were still puzzled. No matter how strong Ling Han was, he couldn't be compared to the 3rd-tier heavenly venerate. Why would he dare to charge here to the doors of the Lu clan? "What's going on?" A sharp voice sounded, and a figure flew out from within the city and landed at the city gate. He pointed to the crack in the city wall and interrogated the 4 guards. This was a young man. Judging by the flame of life he had cultivated for hundreds of millions of years at most, but was already wrapped around by a ribbon of iridescent light. He was a first heaven celestial king, which was truly extraordinary. The 4 guards were still numb, and upon hearing what was said, they all pointed towards Ling Han. Him. The young man looked at Ling Han and couldn't help it as the corners of his mouth twitched. What kind of combination was this pair? Ling Han appeared normal, but he was holding a large black dog, and this large black dog was too abnormal. Although his fur was smooth like satin, he was wearing a pair of black iron underwear, which was reflecting cold light. No matter how one was to look at him, there was a vulgar aura that emanated from him. Just who do you think you are? How dare you destroy the gate of our Lu clan? The young man knew that he himself wouldn't be able to do this, and that his strength was definitely not equal to Ling Han's. But when he was asking this, there was an air of haughtiness and arrogance about him. He completely looked down on Ling Han. This was the arrogance of the members of a noble, heavenly venerable tier clan. They were like, so what about it? Given a 3rd tier heavenly venerate as my ancestor, I can be overbearing and an arrogant bully. If you don't agree, then I will destroy you. Ling Han sighed, stretched out his left hand, and slapped the young man through the air. With the kind of strength did he have now? Since he already made a move, how would a first heaven celestial king be able to block it? Pah! Impacted by a slap in the face, the young man was suddenly sent flying, and quite coincidentally became embedded in the crack of the city wall, like a decoration. This person was a direct descendant of the main line of the Lu clan. Thus, seeing this, the 4 guards suddenly reacted and hurriedly shouted loudly, "Fu! Young master fuming." A guard pointed at Ling Han as he said, You're in big trouble. Quickly, go get reinforcements. The 2nd guard yelled anxiously. Ling Han smiled. He effortlessly took out a chair, sat down, and smilingly said, Don't worry, I'll be waiting right here. Go quickly and call someone over. Too arrogant, he was too arrogant. All the 4 guards were extremely furious. Having barged into the Lu clan and struck with absolutely zero restraint, Ling Han was still so relaxed. Chapter 2690. 2690 Compensate me for my losses. Chapter 2690. 2690 Compensate me for my losses. 2690 Compensate me for my losses. Little Han, quickly let go of Grandpa Dog, the large black dog shouted. Ling Han loosened his grip accordingly, and the large black dog ran off immediately. While running, he also exclaimed, I will be on the lookout for you. If you lose, Grandpa Dog will come out to save you. Shoo, he ran off and disappeared. This damn dog was really cowardly and only interested in saving his own neck. Ling Han didn't mind anyway. In fact, he even closed his eyes and appeared nonchalant. The 4 guards were trembling with fear. Lu Fuming was still embedded in the city wall, with all 4 limbs dangling, and it was unknown whether he was dead or still alive. If someone from the Lu clan came out to ask, how would they answer? It seemed that whatever you were afraid of would materialize. A short while later, 3 figures arrived in a flash. Although the 3 arrived almost at the same time, they did not come together, but separately rushed here from 3 corners of the city. What's going on? Why is Fuming injured? And who is this person? The 3 of them cast a sweeping glance around, looking very angry. Who would be as bold as to come to the Lu clan to cause injury and even damage the city wall of the Lu clan? It's him. The 4 guards hurriedly pointed at Ling Han. His name is Ling Han. Ling Han. The 3 people who came over all frowned. It seemed like they had never heard the name. It sounds familiar. One of them racked his brains for a while and felt as if he had heard the name somewhere. He couldn't help but keep trying his best to recall it again. Humph, I don't care who you are, if you dare to come to the Liu clan to commit a crime, then you must be tired of living, said a man in green clothing. He was a third heaven celestial king, and his face was full of arrogance. Even if you are a ninth heaven celestial king, you can only prostrate or go down on your knees here. This was the arrogance of the members of the Liu clan, no matter who Ling Han was, even if he was a ninth heaven celestial king. The Liu clansman was neither terrified nor afraid. Ling Han shook his head. You're really used to being arrogant and domineering and don't even know how to talk properly. He waved his hand and struck the man in green clothing in a similarly nonchalant manner as he had before. It was another swat at empty air like before, as if he was swatting a mosquito. Pah! When the strike landed, the man in green was instantly sent flying, and he was tightly stuck in the crack of the city wall near Lu Fuming, with one on top of the other, as if they were trying to mend the crack on the wall with their own bodies. How brazen of you! You actually dared to make a move! The man in red shouted fiercely. This man was too reckless. How could he be so impudent? You can go join them too. Ling Han waved his palm again, and the man in red became embedded in the crack as well. You are Ling Han, that Ling Han. At last, the other man finally remembered where he had heard Ling Han's name. But when he raised his head, he saw that the two people around him had disappeared. As he turned to look for them, he found the two of them were embedded in the city wall together. It was really too brutal. He thought of the legend regarding Ling Han, who had killed more than 10 ninth heaven celestial kings in one battle. They were all celestial kings at the peak of the ninth heaven. Even for a heavenly venerable tier force such as theirs, it would take several epochs to nurture a celestial king to reach the peak of the ninth heaven. The fall of one would mean that countless resources had been exhausted in vain. Now you know who I am? Ling Han smiled, but he still waved his right hand without hesitation. Pah! The last person was also sent flying and became embedded in the crack of the city wall. I have always been fair in doing things. Since I was the one who broke the wall, I will fix it up, Ling Han said to himself. When the 4 guards heard it, the corners of their mouths twitched. They thought to themselves, how could you fix up the wall like this, filling it up with celestial kings one after another? This is too extravagant, and the Liu clan will be angered like crazy. Sure enough, another celestial king appeared after a short while. This time more people came because the longer the interval from the time that the alert signal was issued, the more people would receive the news. Moreover, the longer the time it took for news that the alert signal was resolved to arrive, the more it would naturally seem that something was not right, and this had to have alerted certain powerful beings. Xiao, 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 more than a dozen celestial kings flew down from various corners of the city. When they saw that the city wall had cracked open, and it was filled with 4 celestial kings of their own clan, all of them had a cold glint in their eyes. Who could be so brazen? Did he want to die? You bastard! How dare you still remain seated? Hurry, be on your knees and receive your death penalty! A young man leaped out. He only had the cultivation level of the 2nd heaven, but there are clansmen at the 5th heaven and 6th heaven nearby, so he naturally was full of confidence and fearless. Noisy! Ling Han coldly snorted and waved his palm at the young man through the air. Insolence! 2 6th heaven celestial kings immediately snarled. How dared he resort to violence in front of them? They both moved, meeting Ling Han's incoming attack. Pum! 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 Accompanied by 3 bangs, the 2 6th heaven celestial kings and the young man at the 2nd heaven from before were similarly sent off flying with a palm strike and became embedded in the city wall. All the other celestial kings of the Liu clan couldn't help but feel chills all over their bodies. This was too savage. How could a 6th heaven celestial king be like a toy in front of Ling Han, sent off flying with just a casual slap through the air? Ling Han looked up at the city wall and said to himself, it's still a dozen or so short. If it was filled with a dozen more people, the city wall would be patched up, albeit in a sloppy way. Hearing this, the other celestial kings of the Lu clan were all so scared that their faces became pale, and they all retreated one by one. Now the strongest among them was merely a fifth heaven celestial king, who would be as powerless as a sheep in front of Ling Han. Whoa! A terrifying pressure descended, and an elite came down from the sky, wrapped in 9 ribbons of iridescent light. A ninth heaven celestial king had come. Finally, a real elite had appeared. Elder Chiyuan! It's Elder Chiyuan who has come. Elder, please take action and suppress this villain. Those celestial kings of the Lu clan shouted in unison. Now that their pillar of strength had come, they were suddenly all tough. The name of the ninth heaven celestial king was Lu Chiyuan. He looked at Ling Han and said solemnly, "So it is friend Ling who has arrived. Why not present your identity clearly so that Lu clan could receive you as a guest properly?" What? Hearing this, all the others of the Lu clan were stunned. Had the elder gone crazy to be so polite to a villain? They were the Lu clan with a 3rd tier heavenly venerate in charge, to say nothing of a 9th heaven celestial king. Even if it was a pseudo-heavenly venerate who had come, he would have to be respectful and courteous. Ling Han smiled lightly. "I'm here to collect a debt. You can just barely be regarded as the person in charge. I'll ask you then, how will you pay for my damages after sending people to the Martial Academy to besiege me? Compensate for your damages." Lu Chiyuan almost jumped out. "You killed 2 ninth heaven celestial kings from our Lu clan, and yet still want the Lu clan to compensate you." However, thinking of Ling Han's brutality, more than 30 celestial kings at the peak of the 9th heaven had attacked simultaneously at that time. But the result was that not only had they failed to take down Ling Han, more than 10 celestial kings at the peak of Celestial Path had met their demise. They had suffered a colossal loss. Now, the Lu clan only had 99th heaven celestial kings, and there was no one at all with the strength of pseudo-heavenly venerate. How would they be able to take on this brutal murder? Ling Han, you best not forget that this is the Lu clan. Our Grand Elder is, after all, a 3rd tier heavenly venerate. Lu Chiyuan said menacingly. Now, he just hoped that would scare Ling Han. When the Grand Elder of the Lu clan returned in the future, he would naturally suppress Ling Han. It would just be as easy as turning his hand over. Ling Han laughed out loud. "If I had been afraid, why would I have come?" He withdrew his smile and tapped the armrest of the chair. "Don't waste my time. If you don't think carefully on how to compensate me, then I'll go in and get it myself." Chapter 2691 2691 Not Enough. Chapter 2691 2691 Not Enough. 2691 Not Enough. "You!" Lu Chiyuan pointed at Ling Han, so furious that he could barely speak. "This is the Lu clan, you bastard." Ling Han's gaze became harsh. "The thing I hate the most is when others point their finger at me." With a bounce of his feet, Peng, he burst out instantly at an astonishing speed, charging towards Lu Chiyuan. Though Lu Chiyuan was very wary of Ling Han, it had not reached an extent that he did not dare to even battle him. For better or worse, he was also a 9th heaven celestial king himself. "Evil brat, don't go too far!" he roared, each hand grabbing a streak of great Tao, which he smashed towards Ling Han. When one had reached the height of the 9th heaven, there was no need to use any kind of secret technique when fighting lower-level celestial kings. They only had to grab a streak of great Tao and smash it into their opponent. This was the overwhelming power of a superior cultivation level, and was always successful. Ling Han smirked. Body art fused with regulations. His every punch was filled with force, and he very soon suppressed Lu Chiyuan. When those members of the Lu clan saw this, they were all involuntarily captivated. He is only in the 8th heaven. As an 8th heaven, he is already capable of suppressing Elder Chiyuan, who is at peak stage 9th heaven. Then what about when he advances to the ninth heaven? Would he then be able to suppress a pseudo-heavenly venerate? Heavens! They all grabbed their heads in disbelief. This was a scene that they dared not believe. The impact was really too great on them. Damn! Damn! Lu Qiuyan roared in fury. Previously, he had only heard descriptions of Ling Han's strength from the mouths of those celestial kings that had escaped to the Lu clan. Now that he was facing him himself, he finally realized just how strong Ling Han could be. He did not dare believe it. How could an eighth heaven celestial king be so strong? Lu Qiuyan unleashed his full battle prowess, but he could not turn the situation around at all. No matter how much he struggled, it was useless. He was still being suppressed by Ling Han. "You have gone too far!" he roared in fury, and drew his celestial tool. This was an umbrella. The moment it was spread open, the initially clear sky immediately became dark and stormy. Z! 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 Lightning flashed, exuding a pressure of supreme might. "Die!" Lu Qiuyan roared. Previously, more than 30 celestial kings had ganged up on Ling Han, but they had only wanted to capture him and had not planned to take his life. In fact, they could not even inflict serious injury on him, so they naturally had not brought their celestial tools with them. But this time was different. Ling Han had already charged right up to their doors. Even if Lu Qiuyan killed Ling Han with his celestial tool, the Martial Academy would not say anything. Clang! A bolt of lightning soared angrily, striking down on Ling Han. Ling Han stretched out a hand to grab it. Pum! Sparks flashed, turning into countless seals shattering and bringing with them some blood. He had been injured. After all, his indestructible celestial king physique had only reached great accomplishment level, and he had not advanced to the level of divine metal yet. Taking on the might of a celestial tool with his bare hands still caused him slight injury. It was a light injury. He had only bled a little. Ling Han shook his head. If he reached the ninth heaven, with great Tao wrapped around his hands, there was definitely no way he would be wounded by taking this strike head-on, unless he was directly struck by a celestial tool. In that case, he would still be injured. He was only at the eighth heaven at present, but his battle prowess could suppress a ninth heaven opponent. That was because of his domineering body art. In terms of regulations, he naturally was still no match for a ninth heaven. When they saw how Lu Qiuyan had summoned his celestial tool and wounded Ling Han with a single strike, those people of the Lu clan were all overjoyed, and they all erupted into loud cheers. Lu Qiuyan also showed a hint of a smile. It looked like Ling Han was only so strong. He had previously been able to make such a great show of his vicious might only because he had a celestial tool, and the others had not. "You want to compete with me in precious tools?" Ling Han grinned. "Are you sure you want to do that?" "Humph! You have no idea about the power of our Lu clan yet. Every single ninth heaven celestial king would have a celestial tool, and if we unleash our might together, even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would be no match for us." Lu Qiuyan sneered. "You are only a mere eighth heaven celestial king, after all. So how could you know the frightening power that our Lu clan has accumulated through the epics?" Crack! 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 Bolts of lightning struck madly. Ling Han chuckled. This guy was really taking full advantage of the fact that he now had a slight upper hand. Did he really think that celestial tools were all that impressive? Then let me give it a try. With a loud battle cry, Ling Han rushed forwards. Lu Qiuyan waved his celestial tool in a sweep towards Ling Han, wanting to use his domineering might to suppress Ling Han. As for killing him, it would be better to force Ling Han to concoct alchemical pills after he captured him. This would have to depend on the decision made after the higher-ups discussed the matter. Shwa! Cold light swept past. Lu Qiuyan was instantly sent flying, and he shockingly discovered that a small cut had actually been left on the surface of his umbrella. Ling Han's hand held a rusted sword, and it practically looked like a shabby knife used to cut firewood one. However, it was precisely this sword that was so rusty to the point of becoming scrap metal that had damaged his celestial tool in a single stroke. This is. Lu Qiyuan's expression changed drastically. The celestial kings that had escaped had said that there seemed to be a supreme precious tool in Ling Han's possession. Lu Qiyuan had always scoffed at this. How could it be that a puny eighth heaven celestial king would have such a treasure? Yet now he had no choice but to acknowledge this fact. If it was not a supreme, precious tool, how could it possibly be so powerful? Still continuing the competition, Ling Han smiled. Lu Qiyuan could not speak. The Lu clan naturally had a supreme precious tool as well, but it was always by the side of the Grand Elder of the Lu clan and accompanied him to the realm battlefield. Faced with an elite whose battle prowess surpassed peak stage ninth heaven, added with a supreme precious tool, how was he able to block this? So Grandmaster Ling has arrived. Please forgive us for not coming out to receive you. A loud laugh rang out, and 18 ninth heaven celestial kings appeared together. This was the strongest power of the Lu clan. Originally, they had been watching the battle secretly, but when they saw how Ling Han had drawn the divine demon sword and unleashed its might, they naturally could no longer sit by and watch. Thus, they all walked out together. Ling Han stood sword in hand. Enough with the nonsense. My request is very simple. Make reparations for my losses, and I will leave immediately. The present clan leader of the Lu clan, Lu Yonghe, stepped out and said, Previously we had been deceived by a villain, and that was why we had made a move on Grandmaster Ling. This is indeed our mistake. Hearing these words, every member of the Lu clan felt their faces flush hotly. This was a humiliation. Since the Lu clan had been established, when had they ever suffered such a humiliation? They still had to apologize with a bowed head when someone had already charged right up to their doors. But who asked the members of the Lu clan to fail to live up to expectations? No other pseudo-heavenly venerate had appeared from their midst throughout several epochs. Otherwise, how could they be so tragic? Just look at the other noble clans. Take the Wang clan, for example. Their Grand Elder was a third-tier heavenly venerate, and they had afterwards a prodigy by the name of Wang Andi, who had advanced to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier after only cultivating tens of billions of years. He only had to take one more step, and becoming a true heavenly venerate was only a matter of time. Why did the Lu clan have no qualified successors then? We are willing to make reparations for Grandmaster Ling. Here are 3 pieces of divine metal. Please accept them, Grandmaster Ling. With a wave of Lu Yonghe's hand, a beautiful woman immediately walked out, bearing a tray in her hands. There were 3 pieces of metal of different colors on the tray, but they were all exuding a stunning brilliance. This garnered the envy of many junior descendants of the Lu clan. Even 8th heaven celestial kings would be filled with envy. This was divine metal. In the Lu clan, one would only be bestowed with divine metal upon becoming a 9th heaven celestial king. This was the rule. Ling Han did not even glance at it. Waving a hand dismissively, he said, It's not enough. His life was just worth 3 pieces of divine metal. They had to be joking with him. Every member of the Lu clan was enraged. What are you acting so pretentious for? If it was not for the fact that the Grand Elder of the Lu clan is based at the realm battlefield, what right would you have to act arrogantly? Ling Han, don't go too far, a 9th heaven celestial king rebuked. Our Grand Elder is standing guard at the realm battlefield, participating in the resistance against Hysteria's invasion. It is because of his sacrifice that you were given room to grow, yet you are now committing violence in the Lu clan. Do you even have any conscience? Ling Han laughed. You are right. The Grand Elder of the Lu clan is fighting against Hysteria. This kind of sacrifice and contribution is something I truly admire. But can this become the reason for you all to bully me and use your superior status to humiliate me? Chapter 2692. 2692, Admitting Defeat. Chapter 2692. 2692 Admitting Defeat. 2692 Admitting Defeat. When Ling Han's words fell, every single member of the Lu clan was silent. Some were only intimidated by Ling Han's aura and did not dare speak, but there were others that were really reflecting on the errors of their ways. Their grand elders' sacrifice had indeed won honor and glory for the Lu clan, but they were simply using the tactics of a bully to squander away the reputation and prestige of their grand elder. Lu Yonghe took a deep breath. 10 pieces of divine metal. Not enough. Ling Han still shook his head. 10 pieces of divine metal was still not enough? What in the world do you want? Just exactly what does Grandmaster Ling want in exchange for resolving this grudge between us? Lu Yonghe sighed. Open your treasure chamber, and allow me to take my pick, Ling Han said. Woof, woof, woof. The large black dog immediately charged over from the distance. Treasure chamber, treasure chamber, treasure chamber. He was extremely excited. They would really be making great profits if they could rob the treasure chamber of a heavenly venerate. Impossible. Lu Yonghe immediately shook his head in refusal without a second thought. Ling Han raised the divine demon sword. Then I can only start a massacre here, right until there is no one who will stop me. He was determined to beat these great forces to the point that they developed a healthy fear of him and would never dare to trifle with him again in the future. Otherwise, they would keep causing trouble for him. How irritating would that be? Lu Yonghe was furious and wanted to immediately fight a battle with Ling Han, but when he saw the divine demon sword in Ling Han's hand, he swallowed the words that were just on the tip of his tongue. It was possible that the Lu clan would be obliterated if they fought. Though killing Ling Han would be just like child's play when the grand elder of Lu clan returned. How could Lu Yonghe bring himself to watch as the Lu clan that had flourished for several epochs declined in his hands? Lord Clan Leader, since it's a fight he wants, let's give him one. We of the Lu clan do not fear death. That's right. We are the descendants of a heavenly venerate. We definitely cannot bring shame to his prestige. The members of the Lu clan were all calling out. These were basically all young people, filled with youthful vigor and hot-blooded, but even more of them maintained their silence. The threat that Ling Han posed was genuine. If it was only for the sake of their pride and some material objects that the Lu clan was destroyed, that would really be too dumb. To speak of nothing else, if Ling Han eliminated all the members of the Lu clan, would he not be able to calmly open the doors of their treasure chamber and take everything that was contained within? That would make their bloodshed even more insignificant. Agreed. After a very long time of silence, Lu Yonghe finally spat out this word. And after he said this, it was as if he had aged a few decades in an instant. He no longer had any of the pride that he had once had. Today, the Lu clan had suffered such a great humiliation, and as clan leader of Lu clan, it was natural that he would feel it the most. Clan leader! A considerable number of the members of the Lu clan fell to their knees, tears streaming from their eyes. They were bawling and weeping like no tomorrow, as if countless people had died. Ling Han did not feel the slightest bit of compassion. Whose fault was it when it was the Lu clan who had trifled with him first? Furthermore, if it were not for the fact that Ling Han had impressive strength, he would probably be working in turns in the various clans by now, forced to concoct alchemical pills. Who would be sympathizing with him then? Ling Han and the large black dog entered the city, and after Lu Yonghe opened the treasure chamber, they immediately began to rake in their spoils. According to the large black dog, he would throw caution to the wind and rob this place clean. But Ling Han was not as greedy. He only chose the most valuable items, such as celestial king tier, great herbs, divine metal, and the natural treasures that were needed for the cultivation of the indestructible divine metal physique. As expected of a supreme, noble clan, they truly had astonishing wealth. Ling Han was very pleased. After making a whole round, he walked out and said, Clan leader Lu goodbye. We will come back frequently in the future. The large black dog followed up with a parting shot, which caused Lu Yonghe to grab his chest in agony, so pain that he could not even speak. The man and dog left the Lu clan and met back up with Wally. Ling Han tossed a few pieces of divine metal to Wally as payment for his service. They set out again and continued their raid. Zhao clan, Li clan, Sun clan, one after another, heavenly venerable tier forces bowed down in submission to Ling Han. Without a heavenly venerable tier powerhouse in their clans, how would they be able to stop the present Ling Han? After raiding the 6th clan, Ling Han had reaped a good harvest. If the remaining 3 clans would also provide such profits, he would be just about able to upgrade his physique to indestructible divine metal physique. The next one is the Yun clan. Several days later, they arrived at the Yun clan. The Yun clan was not on the ground, in the mountains or out at sea, but rather at the top of clouds. Multiple grand palaces were borne by fluffy white clouds floating in midair. They shone with dazzling golden light. This was truly an amazing sight. However, when Ling Han and company arrived, the Yun clan was also prepared. The doors of every palace were tightly closed, seemingly expressing that they did not welcome Ling Han at all. As per usual, Wally did a preliminary clan to check out the real situation. There is a living being with vitality index that has surpassed 14,000, Wally stated. 14,000. No matter how strong a 9th Heaven Celestial King was, their vitality index would only be over 13,000. There was no way that they could break through the great barrier of 14,000. Pseudo-heavenly venerate. Ling Han exchanged a look with the large black dog, and both exclaimed at the same time. Iron Body, are you sure you did not see wrongly? The large black dog asked Wally. Wally's expression was filled with disdain. He refused to answer this kind of question that was merely a waste of his energy. Little Han, let's retreat, the large black dog said to Ling Han again. This was a pseudo-heavenly venerate. That was a being that no celestial king could be comparable to. In theory, 10 peak stage 9th Heaven Celestial Kings were enough to match a pseudo-heavenly venerate, and Ling Han alone had fought more than 39th Heaven Celestial Kings to the point that they fled in a panic. In that case, if Ling Han were to face off against a pseudo-heavenly venerate, it should be Ling Han's absolute victory. But this comparison could not be done in such a manner. The fact that Ling Han could suppress so many 9th Heaven Celestial Kings was due to the fact that he had a heavenly venerate tool in his possession. No Celestial King could possibly match that, and they could only be suppressed by Ling Han. But it was different for pseudo-heavenly venerates. Though they, too, could not stand against a heavenly venerate tool equally, it would not be a completely one-sided battle, either. After all, the divine demon sword had only reached the heavenly venerable tier in terms of quality. Its might was still too far off from that level. On the other hand, a pseudo-heavenly venerate had the advantage in power and speed, and this was completely enough to cancel out the advantage that a heavenly venerate tool gave Ling Han. To have Ling Han fighting a pseudo-heavenly venerate now, even if he had the help of the divine demon sword, was still quite tough. He should only be able to escape. Because he was outmatched in both power and speed, he could only be beaten passively. No matter how great the power of the divine demon sword was, what was the use if it could not hit its target? We fight. Ling Han's fighting spirit sword. How are we supposed to fight? Wouldn't that be just delivering ourselves up to be defeated? The large black dog hurriedly pulled Ling Han back, not wanting him to deliver himself up to be defeated. Ling Han shook his head. You and Wally retreat first. I want to try myself out in battle. Firstly, he indeed wished to see just how far off he presently was from pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. In the future, when he faced Yufeng again, he would also have some idea. Secondly, he was only a slight bit away from 9th Heaven. He only needed a trigger to be able to cross over this new threshold. Perhaps that would be a little bit of pressure. This was a pseudo-heavenly venerate. That was enough to exert pressure on him. Brat, take care then. Grandpa Dog is leaving first. The large black dog had absolutely zero concept of the idea of loyalty, and he patted Ling Han's shoulder. If you die, Grandpa Dog will come and pick up your body. Ling Han laughed loudly. With a tap of his foot, he directly soared into midair where he stood. Since the Yun clan still has a pseudo-heavenly venerate, what is the need to hide and cower? Come out and battle me. What a truly brazen brat! A relaxed voice rang out, and a figure walked over through the air. This was a young man in green robes. He was handsome and dashing, bearing an intimidating charisma. How do I address you, sir? Ling Han asked smilingly. With his present strength, though he was still no match for a pseudo-heavenly venerate, he was not too far off, either. He was completely capable of speaking as an equal to a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Chapter 2693. 2693 Fighting a Pseudo-Heavenly Venerate. Chapter 2693. 2693 Fighting a Pseudo-Heavenly Venerate. 2693 Fighting a Pseudo-Heavenly Venerate. For an eighth heaven celestial king to speak as equals with a pseudo-heavenly venerate was slightly unimaginable. Ling Han really had a puffed-up opinion of himself, didn't he? But this pseudo-heavenly venerate of the Yun clan merely smiled slightly, and was not the slightest bit angered. He replied, My name is Yun Haoyang. Good name. Ling Han nodded. Little guy, you are indeed considerably freakish, being able to suppress peak stage ninth heaven celestial kings when you yourself are only in the eighth heaven. Perhaps your glory can dazzle the ages. Even among those Lord's seventh tier heavenly venerates from before, there are only a very few that can be considered your equal. Yun Haoyang made a very high assessment of Ling Han. But you should understand that celestial kings are only celestial kings in the end. In front of a pseudo-heavenly venerate, they are merely trash. When he spoke this last line, his brilliance was on full display, emanating a radiance that was similar to a supreme divine sword, so intimidating that it was suffocating. Then let us battle. Ling Han was filled with a heroic spirit as he charged towards Yun Haoyang, sword in hand. Humph! Do you really think that you can defy all rules? Yun Haoyang sneered. With a flash of his figure, he, too, moved extraordinarily quickly. What was the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier? That was to use that unique power of heaven and earth to temper own body and possess astonishing body art apart from regulations. In fact, this had even surpassed the level of regulations. When there came a day that not only could they use this power to temper their bodies, they could even extract and use it directly. They would then no longer be a pseudo-heavenly venerate, but rather a genuine heavenly venerate. A pseudo-heavenly venerate was an existence that lay between the celestial king tier and heavenly venerable tier. Ling Han had used void particle energy to temper his body, so his body was definitely stronger than that of the average pseudo-heavenly venerate. But with him being limited by his cultivation level, it was impossible that he could truly become a match for a pseudo-heavenly venerate. This was a qualitative difference. Yun Haoyang moved. He was even faster than Ling Han, and stronger as well. As he threw a punch, the force of his blow multiplied fold after fold, causing Ling Han's speed to rapidly decrease. Then Ling Han stopped and retreated, speeding up, and pung! He was punched down to the ground, causing a loud bang to sound out from the ground as dust flew everywhere. Pung! Ling Han shot out from beneath the ground, his clothing covered with dirt and mud, as well as blood. Even his skin had cracked open. The attack of a pseudo-heavenly venerate was indeed domineering, even if Ling Han had improved further since the time he had faced off against Yufeng. Taking the strike of a pseudo-heavenly venerate head-on still caused him to take a slight loss. Thankfully, this was only a small loss. It had only caused him some flesh injury, and had not damaged his bones or touched his core at all. An, indeed, amazing physique. Yun Haoyang nodded. He was certain that even if his body had been tempered by that unique power of heaven and earth, he still could not compare to Ling Han's physique. The latter had to have cultivated some kind of secret technique, and that was why he could boost the toughness of his physique to this kind of height. Ling Han patted away the dirt that covered him and said, "The power of a pseudo-heavenly venerate is indeed great, but if Brother Yun's battle prowess is only limited to this, hee. This kind of battle prowess was indeed superior to Ling Han's, but it was impossible that Yun Haoyang could use this kind of battle prowess to suppress Ling Han completely. Then I shall show you the power of a pseudo-heavenly venerate." Yun Haoyang moved again. It was a very simple move, just a simple punch. However, Great Tao moved with his blow and boosted with frightening power. It was a magnificent strike that would spark terror even in ninth heaven's celestial kings. Ling Han moved, sword in hand. Shua! With a slash, this force was instantly cut by his sword, sliding past on either side of him. A heavenly venerate tool was indestructible. Good. Yun Haoyang showed a hint of admiration. As expected of a heavenly venerate tool, it is clear that it has only advanced into this threshold in terms of quality and cannot be considered a genuine heavenly venerate tool yet, but it can break apart even my assault. It is truly extraordinary. He stretched out a hand to grab Ling Han. His power took form, solidifying into a giant, grayish golden hand. It was covered with seals and also exuded an aura that surpassed regulations. This was a pseudo-heavenly venerating power that surpassed the celestial king tier as the main force and supplementing it with supreme regulations, having battle prowess that was superior to the celestial king tier, yet inferior to a true heavenly venerate. This precious tool, I shall gladly accept it. In your dreams. Ling Han laughed loudly and channeled the 5 elements lightning technique. Pressing out with his left hand, he greeted the incoming assault of that giant, grayish golden hand. Boom! Power exploded, creating boundless, wild waves of energy. Xiao! Ling Han charged out. After using the heavenly venerate technique, his battle prowess had already touched the threshold of the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. At the very least, when Yun Haoyang was not using a heavenly venerate technique himself, it was definitely impossible for him to suppress Ling Han. Ling Han shot rapidly towards Yun Haoyang, slashing out with the divine demon sword in his hand, and turning his original defensive stance into an offensive one. Confinement! Yun Haoyang smiled slightly, stretching out a hand. He merely drew a circle, gently with his hand. Instantly, Ling Han felt like the air all around him had solidified, forcefully stopping him. With a wave of his sword, shwa, 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 the air was slashed apart. He charged out, but during this kind of lapse, Yun Haoyang had sent another palm strike his way. It was still that giant, dark, golden hand from before. In Yun Haoyang's hands, this kind of attack could be displayed casually. He was a real pseudo-heavenly venerate, so unleashing this kind of attack was naturally no big deal for him. However, for Ling Han, the burden was too heavy. Even if he had leaped into the 8th heaven, he could only channel the 5 elements lightning technique for around 100 times. How could he bear up to using it so frequently? Pum! Ling Han did not use the heavenly venerate technique again. Instantly, his palm pressed down, heavily smashing into the ground. After several exchanges, Ling Han had fallen into a complete advantage. He was not the slightest bit discouraged by this, because this was something he had long since expected. There was no way his present battle prowess had surpassed the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. He merely wanted to use the other's hand to temper himself. Yun Haoyang, meanwhile, was slightly surprised. Though he had heard of how freakish Ling Han could be, he had not taken it to heart. After all, Ling Han merely possessed a heavenly venerate tool, and could attack to the point that 9th heaven's celestial kings were forced to flee in panic. But in front of him, he would not be able to gain much advantage. He couldn't even come close enough, so how could he be able to pose a threat to him? Ling Han was too tenacious, having a tough physique and an iron willpower. Even if he was at a disadvantage, he was still extremely calm. Clearly, he was someone who had fought many battles where the odds had been against him. No matter how Yun Haoyang tried to suppress him, Ling Han was always able to bounce back immediately. This kind of opponent was really a pest. Yun Haoyang had to become serious. Being able to hold on until now, you are truly amazing. You can be considered the top in Celestial King tier, Yun Haoyang said. However, if I use a Heavenly Venerate technique, just how many strikes will you be able to withstand? Ling Han threw out his fists. Just give it a try then. As you wish. Yun Haoyang's arms spread open, his left arm stretched out and straightened, raised level in front of his chest, while his right arm made the motion as if he was drawing a bow. Wong! A golden light formed and turned into an arrow aimed directly at Ling Han. The hair on the back of Ling Han's neck immediately stood on ends. He felt a suffocating feeling, as if he was faced with death. I'm not playing anymore. Ling Han hurriedly broke into a run. In the first place, his battle prowess was no match for a pseudo-heavenly venerate, and now, with the pseudo-heavenly venerate unleashing a powerful attack, there was absolutely no possibility he could withstand it. If he took this blow head-on, even if he did not die, he would still be heavily injured. He really had to be a fool to actually do something like that. Yun Haoyang was slightly startled. He had not expected that with how domineering Ling Han had spoken just moments ago, he would actually turn around and directly run in the blink of an eye. He was being so forthright and frank, and did not even leave behind some parting lines. Thinking about it, it was reasonable. Wasn't it logical that an 8th heaven celestial king would avoid a battle with a pseudo-heavenly venerate? If Ling Han confronted him forcefully, there would not be one person that would praise his courage if they knew about it. They would only call him a fool. With these thoughts, Yun Haoyang's grip loosened. Go! With a soft exclamation from him, the golden arrow shot out in hot pursuit of Ling Han. Chapter 2694 2694 Embarrassment of the Yun Clan. Chapter 2694 2694 Embarrassment of the Yun Clan. 2694 Embarrassment of the Yun Clan. Immediately moved to suppress Ling Han without wasting words. As long as Yun Haoyang did not unleash any powerful attacks, Ling Han would be able to handle him with his indestructible Celestial King physique. At most, he would only sustain some minor injuries. However, when Yun Haoyang launched a powerful attack, Ling Han knew that he was outmatched and would break into a run at the first instant. Ling Han had set his sights on Yun Haoyang and would charge to the Yun clan to call out a challenge frequently. At times, the interval would be quite long, as he would take over a dozen days before he paid another visit. That was because his injuries were slightly heavier than usual. At other times, he would charge back after just a few hours. That was because Yun Haoyang had taken too much time to release a powerful attack, so Ling Han managed to escape a long time ago. Fighting to and fro like this, half a year's time passed in the blink of an eye. Though Ling Han had not been able to penetrate the defenses of the Yun clan had also not managed to apprehend him. Furthermore, because of Ling Han, the members of the Yun clan did not dare to take a single step out their doors at all, fearing that he would suddenly intercept them and kill them. A dignified Heavenly Venerable tier force was actually forced to become cowards in their own clan. This made every single member of the Yun clan righteously furious. But who asked that Ling Han was really too freakish? His speed was not much lower than that of Yun Haoyang himself, and even Yun Haoyang could not do anything against him. Chasing Ling Han off was an easy task, but to suppress and capture Ling Han, that was just being delusional. It was not that Yun Haoyang had not pursued Ling Han before, but as long as he did not launch any great attacks, he would not be able to do anything to Ling Han. But if he did release a great attack, he would need time to prepare for it. This little bit of time was enough time for Ling Han to escape. A pseudo-heavenly venerate had made a move, yet was still unable to take down an 8th heaven celestial king. When the news spread out, everyone was stunned. When Ling Han had exchanged blows with He Yufeng previously, he had still been unable to withstand a single blow. Though the fury of an ordinary man had still caused He Yufeng to bleed, the gap between them could not be any more obvious. Yet now, a whole half-year's time passed, and Ling Han was seen constantly provoking the Yun clan. But there was no sign of the Yun clan taking him down. To say that Yun Haoyang had been going easy on Ling Han, there was probably no one that would believe something so ridiculous, was there? This was too terrifying. He had just advanced by 1 cultivation level, and his battle prowess had multiplied many times over. However, they had overlooked the role played by the divine demon sword. If Ling Han did not possess this heavenly venerate tool, he could only flee immediately when he encountered Yun Haoyang. He would not be qualified to oppose him at all. But even so, Ling Han was indeed very amazing, forcing a pseudo-heavenly venerate to the point that the latter could only stay on the defense in his clan. What other celestial king could actually do the same? However, Ling Han was not the slightest bit satisfied. He kept challenging Yun Haoyang, as if he was playing with fire. His motive was to make use of the latter to help him break through to the 9th heaven. But half a year had already passed, and he still did not have any improvement. He could not see any hope of breaking through at all. This made him slightly depressed and agitated as well. Again, as usual, Ling Han went to the Yun clan to call out a challenge, and Yun Haoyang also accepted helplessly. You are trying to use me to help you break through to the 9th heaven, right? After fighting for so long, Yun Haoyang naturally discovered Ling Han's motives as well. Otherwise, it would be meaningless to have challenged him over and over again like this. A cold light flashed in his eyes. A celestial king actually dared to use him as a grindstone to polish himself. Just how arrogant was he? And just how far was he looking down on him to do such a thing? Ling Han broke into a grin. You found out. There is no way you can succeed. Yun Haoyang sneered. 9 nines return to 1, the pinnacle number of this world. Though I admit that you are indeed freakish, the threshold of the 9th heaven requires slow polishing and grounding. Spending over 1 billion to 10 billion years would be considered quick, and even an epoch would not be considered too long, either. Furthermore, the higher one's natural talent, the more time would be needed to break through this barrier. You will not be able to last until then at all. My cultivation level is close to stabilizing completely. Once it's done, my battle prowess will surge many times over, and killing you then will be as easy as slaughtering a chicken. Chapter 2695. 2695, A Real Battle. Chapter 2695. 2695, A Real Battle. 2695, A Real Battle. He put some distance between himself and Ling Han, spread out both his hands to form a bow, and Wang, a golden arrow, was immediately formed. Even Yun Yanghao wasn't able to use this kind of powerful attack several times consecutively, as it involved the unique power of heaven and earth. He could only extract it to temper himself, but could not directly use it against the enemy. However, even if there was only a trace of it, just a little bit, this was a power that superseded the regulations. It would crush and destroy everything. Anyone whose strength was below a heavenly venerate's wouldn't be able to block it. Ling Han's hair stood on ends immediately. His first reaction was to run away, but the urge to escape was forcefully suppressed by him. If he wanted to break through, he had to force himself into complete desperation, and then be reborn from the ashes, soaring into the sky. Come. He channeled the 9 transformations divine scroll and increased his power infinitely. Not running. Yun Haoyang was stunned at first, and then overjoyed. This was a heavenly venerate technique he was using, and even the pseudo-heavenly venerate would not dare to confront it, but Ling Han, an 8th heaven celestial king, intended to take it head-on. This was truly bringing about his own destruction. However, this suited him. This time, really go meet your doom. Xiao, Yun Haoyang loosened his hand and shot the golden arrow. Too fast. The arrow directly crushed the space with two, leaving a ripple of regulations behind it, and appeared in front of Ling Han in a flash. Break! Ling Han threw his fist, and nine-colored thunder was wrapped around his fist. With this punch, he channeled two heavenly venerate techniques simultaneously, causing the flesh and blood of his entire arm to burst at the same time. Compared to when he had been at the seventh heaven, his physique had not improved, but as his cultivation level became higher, of course his battle prowess also became stronger. But this made the backlash become stronger as well, causing greater damage to his body. Pum! This punch hit the golden arrow, and endless brilliance flashed. At this moment, heaven and earth became pale due to it. Countless stars were shaken down, as if it were raining. Did Ling Han block the golden arrow? No. Even the combination of two heavenly venerate techniques wasn't able to do it, and Ling Han's entire arm was currently only left with the skeleton, which instantly turned into countless pieces of broken bones, dispersing violently in all directions, while only part of the energy of the golden arrow was consumed, and it continued to shoot towards Ling Han. Ling Han let out a loud roar, circulating the indestructible heaven scroll to the extreme, and golden seals began appearing on his body one after another. Chapter 2696. 2696 Ninth Heaven. Chapter 2696 2696 Ninth Heaven. 2696 Ninth Heaven. Pum! The golden arrow landed on Ling Han, and suddenly the golden pattern dimmed immediately, their golden light disappearing in an instant. The defense formed by the indestructible heaven scroll had already been pierced through. The golden arrow sank into Ling Han's body, but there was half that was still exposed, and its momentum was finally expended completely. Pa! The golden arrow trembled, instantly turning into bits of light. This was not because its energy had been exhausted, but rather because it had hit its target, and the martial intent contained within was beginning to unleash its might. Ling Han felt his mind shake and almost explode. This impact was too terrifying. It was like a heavenly venerate had barged into his mind and was attacking wildly within his mind. If it were not because Ling Han had experienced too many spiritual attacks in the Celestial King graveyard previously, this strike would have probably caused him to lose consciousness. Even so, it was still a hard time for him. You actually survived. Yun Haoyang was surprised. Ling Han had taken such a powerful attack head-on from him, yet he actually survived and only sustained heavy injury. This brat's defense was beyond his expectations. However, since things had reached this point, Ling Han was definitely already spent. Complete elimination. He definitely could not leave this future trouble alive. Kill! Yun Haoyang descended from the skies. He was going to take this chance when Ling Han was at his utmost weakest to take the life of this young prodigy. Ling Han drummed up his remaining energy. Pum! Exerting power through his feet, he began to run madly, dashing forwards for the sake of his own life. His motive had already been attained. He had already pushed himself to the limits, and at present, all the blood vessels inside his body were still popping continuously. Death seemed to be close at hand, causing his nerves to be stretched tightly. He could feel it. Breakthrough was already not too far away. As long as he digested his gains from this battle, he would definitely be able to advance to the pinnacle of the celestial path. Thus, what was the point in continuing the battle now? He escaped and began to run for his life. Didn't you say you wouldn't be running? Yun Haoyang transmitted this message via divine sense, trying to provoke Ling Han into continuing the battle as he continued to pursue him from behind. How could Ling Han possibly fall for it? He, too, communicated through divine sense. Yun Haoyang, just wait. When I next appear, it will be your turn to flee. He said these words with surging pride, and these words were filled with absolute confidence. If he became a ninth heaven, he would definitely be able to match a pseudo-heavenly venerate. If so, that is even more reason that I cannot leave you alive. Yun Haoyang declared coldly, a cold light flashing in his eyes. This time, no matter what corner of the world he had to chase him to, he was determined to kill Ling Han. Ling Han did not answer. He had already said all that he had to say. Next, it would be him coming back to kill all in his way after he had advanced into the ninth heaven. One fled, while the other pursued, and both of them were going all out. 10 days, 1 month, half a year. Time passed continuously. Yun Haoyang continued to pursue Ling Han, and a fierce battle broke out. However, Ling Han also drew the divine demon sword in response, and held no fear of the other party at all. Yet this time, it was Yun Haoyang that did not dare to use a powerful attack again, because once he used a powerful attack, it would give Ling Han a chance to escape. Thus, the two of them were embroiled in a fierce, drawn-out battle. One was determined to flee, while the other was determined to detain the former. Ling Han was not running in a straight path, but rather running circles around the Yun clan. However, after circling around for a year, he suddenly crashed into fog. This was very strange. Before this, he had not seen any kind of fog gather here at all. Little Han followed Grandpa Dog's instructions. The large black dog's voice rang out inside Little Han's mind. Though the large black dog was very despicable, Ling Han had incomparable trust in him. When he heard him, he immediately walked according to the large black dog's instructions. Every 7 steps, advance, and turn after every 3 steps. It was extremely complex. Xiao, Yun Haoyang also barged in. However, he immediately lost track of Ling Han. Nothing but an illusory formation. You think you can stop me like this? He sneered, and immediately waved his hands, unleashing the might of a pseudo-heavenly venerate, wanting to sweep aside all the fog in a single move. He was a pseudo-heavenly venerate and had boundless might. With his overwhelming power, any kind of formation would be destroyed. However, though the fog rippled like the waves of a sea with this attack, it did not disperse. Yun Haoyang finally showed a hint of seriousness. On the other side, Ling Han soon walked out of the fog by following the large black dog's instructions, and soon saw the large black dog and Wally standing in front of him. Let's go. This formation would not be able to hold a pseudo-heavenly venerate down for long. The large black dog called out, looking extremely anxious. Ling Han nodded, and they left immediately. As expected, a loud boom was heard just a while later. A frightening wave of force surged out. Yun Haoyang already escaped, but he had also lost track of Ling Han. He couldn't help but roar furiously, his voice rumbling out like thunder, turning into a boundless ocean of flames. This was his fury taking solid form. Brat, how about it? Don't you still need Grandpa Dog to save you? The large black dog grinned proudly. Ling Han smiled and said, "It was Wally who set up the formation, right?" Wally nodded. He was the most honest. The large black dog humphed. That was also because Grandpa Dog asked him to find formation, and Grandpa Dog was the one who personally set it up. Otherwise, you would still be hunted by now, Brat. What idle time would you have to argue with Grandpa Dog now? Ling Han laughed loudly. He coughed up a great many bits of his internal organs with each laugh, yet he was completely unconcerned. Then thank you. Of course, you are under Grandpa Dog's protection. The large black dog claimed all the credit without any reservations. He paused and then asked Ling Han, "Brat, you're not going to die, right?" "I'm not going to die, but I need a very long time to recover." Ling Han nodded. "However, when I recover, it will be the day that the Yun clan have to bow their heads." "Brat, are you certain you can break through to the ninth heaven?" The large black dog was also very pleased. They sought out a place to heal their injuries. Yun Haoyang would definitely not give up, and would look everywhere for Ling Han to get rid of a future problem like him. Thus, they ran very far, and the farther they went, the higher the difficulty level for Yun Haoyang to find them would naturally be. A month later, they finally stopped and entered into the depths of an ocean. Ling Han began to heal his injuries. He recovered very slowly. This time, it was injuries that had been inflicted from powerful attacks of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Furthermore, he had also missed the first instance to recover, causing his injuries to worsen considerably. Moreover, if it were not for the fact that he had been exposed to void particle energy a long time ago and had developed a certain level of related understanding and resistance, he would probably have been killed with a single arrow. Ling Han slowly removed the foreign martial intent from within his body. This was a great test, but at the same time it was also an opportunity, allowing him to feel the power of a heavenly venerate from an endlessly close distance. Time passed by quietly. 10 years, 101,000. In the blink of an eye, 210,000 years had passed. Ling Han had finally removed the foreign martial intent bit by bit. With a battle cry, he surged from the seabed right into the skies, and his aura completely unfurled. Instantly, winds and clouds raged and thunder boomed loudly. The heavenly tribulation was coming. A ninth heaven great tribulation. Ling Han laughed. So what if it was a ninth heaven tribulation? He was completely unafraid. Come at me. Clang! The tribulation descended and began to strike madly and explosively at him. Unfortunately, the power of a heavenly tribulation was limited. It was only slightly stronger than the eighth heaven tribulation that Ling Han had previously undergone. It was already no longer enough to threaten Ling Han. The heavenly tribulation boomed wildly, and countless bursts of lightning exploded on Ling Han's body. Yet they were ultimately unable to penetrate the defense of his body. A day later, the heavenly tribulation withdrew helplessly. The dark clouds that filled the skies dispersed. 9 ribbons of iridescent light flashed around Ling Han, signifying that he had finally set foot on the pinnacle of the celestial path. Ling Han did not charge back to the Yun clan at the first opportunity. He had only just broken through to the 9th heaven, but there had not been much of a boost to his battle prowess. That was because the upper limits on his body art had just been lifted, but he had not begun to improve it yet. He descended back to the bottom of the sea and extracted void particle energy to temper his body. Chapter 2697. 2697, The Return of the King. Chapter 2697. 2697, The Return of the King. 2697, The Return of the King. This was yet another long process. Heavenly Venerable tier characters appeared in Ling Han's mind, which didn't mean anything to him, but could increase the efficiency of his stimulation of void particle energy. Even so, his progress could be seen as slow. After 30,000 years, Ling Han once again ended his seclusion and opened his eyes, and 2 beams of cold light illuminated heaven and earth, as if they could penetrate the whole flaming frost realm. Then his eyes returned to normal, leaving behind only warm radiance, and his whole body's aura was completely suppressed, making him appear like an ordinary person. Returning to one's true self, the great accomplishment of cultivation level. Ling Han laughed loudly, stood up, and casually raised his arms. Boom! His devastating aura surged like a great river. Little Han, you are finally out. The large black dog jumped out. Grandpa Dog has been waiting until all the flowers have withered, and been sitting until his buttocks almost got calluses. Ling Han simply chuckled. Did the large black dog think that Ling Han wouldn't know because he was in seclusion? This damn dog was so flamboyant that it was impossible that he would stay still. He had to be wandering around. It just so happened that he hadn't gone out at this point in time. Vitality Index 14,574, Wally's eyes released a beam of green light as he was scanning Ling Han. "Hiss, brat, your current strength is nearly as good as that of a pseudo-heavenly venerate," the large black dog said excitedly. This was amazing, indeed, being a ninth heaven celestial king, and yet possessing the battle prowess of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. If Ling Han was to become a pseudo-heavenly venerate, then wouldn't he be able to kill even a first-tier heavenly venerate? However, Ling Han knew that he wasn't that powerful himself. The reason was that, despite seemingly being in the early stage of the ninth heaven, he had already reached the level of pseudo-heavenly venerate in terms of body art, and this wouldn't change even after he truly became a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Therefore, what he could improve next was simply the power of regulations, and naturally the degree of improvement would be limited. Naturally, as his body was being tempered by void particle energy, his strength would also let him far exceed an overwhelming majority of pseudo-heavenly venerates. Fortunately, at least I can beat the crap out of a certain someone. Ling Han laughed. In terms of body art, he was only at the early stage of the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, but because of void particle energy, his vitality index could be compared with that of a late-stage pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, which was naturally enough for him to suppress Yun Haoyang. "That's great, Grandpa Dog, can't wait," the large black dog also shouted with excitement. Things such as looting clans were his favorite activity. They left the ocean and headed back towards the Yun clan for battle. More than 200,000 years had passed, and the Yun clan had long since returned to normal. At the beginning, they had been really worried that Ling Han would make a comeback, but after years of being cautious, Ling Han had never been seen to appear, so they had gradually let down their guard. Ling Han ought to be already dead. This was only normal. Wasn't it normal to die from serious injuries after being hit by a pseudo-heavenly venerate's powerful attack? Some Yun clan members had inquired Yun Haoyang regarding the matter, and after careful consideration, Yun Haoyang had also affirmed the conclusion that Ling Han ought to be already dead. At that time, Ling Han was already suffering from serious injuries, and in addition to being hunted down by Yun Haoyang, his injuries would continue to worsen, and the probability of dying would have been very high. Initially, Yun Haoyang hadn't dared to make such a conclusion, but after tens of thousands of years, there hadn't been any news regarding Ling Han, and thus even he had become certain that Ling Han had to be dead. Yun Haoyang felt it was quite unfortunate. Since Ling Han's physique was so strong, he had to have cultivated a certain heavenly venerate technique, which had now disappeared together with Ling Han's death. This made him feel that it was a pity. In the past, having been fiercely suppressed by Ling Han had made the Yun clan completely lose face. Therefore, although Ling Han's body had not been found yet, having Yun Haoyang's personal affirmation that Ling Han had to be dead, they began to release the news that Ling Han had been killed by the pseudo-heavenly venerate of their clan in order to restore the reputation of the Yun clan. Just a mere 8th heaven celestial king, how could he possibly shake up the Yun clan? As soon as a pseudo-heavenly venerate makes a move, such a minor character will only be granted death. This is the consequence of angering the Yun clan. They bragged to their heart's content, completely forgetting the past when they had been blocked by Ling Han at their doorstep, and even the pseudo-heavenly venerate had been unable to do anything about it. However, history ultimately lay in the hands of the victors, and since Ling Han did not jump out to refute, many people gradually accepted the fact that Ling Han was dead. The current Yun clan was peaceful, a show of happiness and prosperity. As Ling Han had caused such a ruckus in the beginning, with the person himself being so legendary, it reached the point where some people would purposely come here to pay their respects and offer condolences. The Yun clan could not prohibit it at all, and as time passed, the place became a small town where many cultivators would come daily to commemorate the last battle of the supreme freak of his generation, Ling Han, who had been defeated at this place. When the trio, including Ling Han, had arrived, they were also taken aback by the sudden emergence of this small town located below the mountain, and became a little confused. What was going on? "Let's check it out," Ling Han said. They changed their appearance slightly. Now that Ling Han had returned to his true self, there was actually no need for him to conceal himself. If it wasn't someone familiar looking, it would be impossible to connect him with his previous self. As for the large black dog, he transformed into a human form, a mighty man who was 7 feet tall, appearing quite formidable. It was just that his eyes were extremely vulgar. It was the essence of his character, which could not be changed. Wally didn't have to change anything, as his face had never been revealed before. The 3 people entered the town and found that it was really lively with restaurants, gambling houses, and even brothels, and people would come and go like a stream. Come and see, this is a stone stained with Lord Ling Han's blood," someone shouted at the side of the road. He had set up a stall filled with many stones, which were indeed stained with red blood. This call immediately attracted the attention of many people on the road, and they all went to surround him one by one. "Is it genuine?" someone inquired. There were too many people selling using the gimmick of Ling Han's relics, and it turned out that most of them were fake. "Of course it's genuine. Haven't you sensed the powerful pressure emanating from the blood on the stone?" The man who had set up the stall immediately said proudly. "Although Lord Ling Han has fallen, he died at the hands of a pseudo-heavenly venerate after all, and thus has absolutely lived up to his reputation of being freakish. Just imagine, if you can inherit a trace of his cultivation from Lord Ling Han's ancient blood, you might be able to become the second Lord Ling Han in the future." Indeed, this statement wasn't false. A celestial king's blood contained the celestial king's martial intent, and by deduction, one could even probe into the secret of the celestial king's cultivation. A question remained. Was the blood on this stone really Ling Han's? The onlookers were excited by the person who had set up the stall. To become the second Ling Han, this was such an amazing temptation. How much? One by one, many were asking. 1,000,000 star stones, said the person who had set up the stall. Everyone was hesitant. 1,000,000 star stones wasn't a small figure. Most of them were just minor characters of the severing, mundane tier. Seriously, it wasn't easy to fork out 1,000,000 star stones. At this moment, an abrupt voice suddenly interrupted. What Lord Ling Han? He was just a piece of trash. Everyone became extremely annoyed. Those who had come here were people who had heard of Ling Han's legend and regarded him as their idol. Now that someone actually belittled their idol, it naturally made them very angry. They all turned their heads to look, only to see that it was a young man dressed in fine clothes. One could tell he had come from a powerful force or family with a single glance. No matter what, that kind of arrogance couldn't be concealed. "Who are you? How dare you slander Lord Ling Han?" someone said angrily. The young man in fine clothes gave a cold look, and he suddenly stretched out his hand to press against that man. "Insolence, you dare to insult me. You must be tired of living." Chapter 2698. 2698 Your Grandpa is the One. Chapter 2698. 2698 Your Grandpa is the One. 2698 Your Grandpa is the One. Heavenly Brilliance Tier. As soon as the young man in fine clothes made a move, everyone was shocked. Heavenly Brilliance Tier, the corresponding level of martial arts in the celestial realm, would be the ascending origin tier. This was indeed extremely strong, completely crushing the weaklings here. With just one move, the person who had spoken was seized by the young man in fine clothes. He gripped the other party's neck and said lightly, "I didn't hear clearly what you said earlier. Can you repeat?" The man showed hesitation, but in the end he didn't dare to attempt being valiant and said, "It's my fault for being blind as a bat and offending young master. Please forgive me." This was a world of cultivators, where those with strength would be respected. Had he dared to attempt being valiant, then he would have died in vain if he had been killed. The young man in fine clothes laughed out loud, raised his hand, and threw the man. He took a step and paw. Several Ling Han bloodstones on the ground shattered to pieces, which also proved that the stones were fake. Otherwise, had they truly been stained with the blood of a celestial king, they wouldn't have been so easily destroyed by a person of the ascending origin tier. So what of Ling Han? If I had been born 200,000 years earlier, I would have killed him with a single swat of my hand, he said arrogantly. Everyone was angry, but didn't dare not speak out. They thought to themselves that Ling Han was merely a seventh heaven celestial king at that time, but he killed more than 10 celestial kings at the peak of ninth heaven in one battle, fought against a pseudo-heavenly venerate for half a year, and blocked the Yun clan so much so that no one dared to step out their doors. How domineering and powerful was this? What was a mere heavenly brilliance tier like this guy worth? If Lord Ling Han had not fallen, would you have dared to slander him like this? Remember, my name is Situ Tai-sun, said the young man in fine clothes. The future of the world will belong to me. One day, I will trample all the prodigies under my feet. People like Ji Wuming, Heavenborn, and Du Shi can only look up to me. Everyone was speechless. This was too shameless indeed. His conceit practically soared to the skies. The large black dog couldn't bear it any longer and said, "You snob! Have you devoured the courage of an immortal dragon to actually dare to boast so shamelessly?" Situ Tai-sun looked at the large black dog with an angry expression. What kind of dog dares to act presumptuously in front of me? The large black dog was furious. He hated people mentioning the word dog in front of him, as it was tantamount to cursing him face to face. He gave a howl, waved his paw, and swatted towards Situ Tai-sun. "You're courting death." Situ Tai-sun sneered and raised his palm to fight back. He was of the heavenly brilliance tier, and the only person stronger than him in heaven and earth would be a celestial king. However, even in the flaming frost realm, a celestial king wasn't just anybody, and would not be so easily encountered. Pum! With one blow, Situ Tai-sun was immediately sent flying. Given his strength, he was certainly no match for the large black dog. In fact, the large black dog didn't even need to make a move. He could crush him into a puddle of blood with just a snort. However, the large black dog didn't want to reveal his identity for the time being, so Situ Tai-sun was flipped upside down with a slap, and his head was planted in the ground, so deep that half his body was embedded in it. Even so, there was a buzz of gasps all around. That person was someone at the heavenly brilliance tier, after all, and he was knocked over with a slap. Could it be that you are a celestial king? Everyone looked at the large black dog with admiration. Though Ling Han could see celestial kings all around him after he had arrived at the martial academy, so many that he was almost bored by it. In fact, the number of celestial kings was still low even in the flaming frost realm. It was just that place where Ling Han had stayed happened to be full of celestial kings, which gave the feeling that the number of celestial kings was exceptionally high. For the vast majority of people, the severing mundane tier was already unattainable, while an immortal palace tier could be regarded as a peerless elite, and an ascending origin tier would be an overlord of a region, capable of starting a sect and establishing a faction. How powerful was a celestial king tier? These were just minor characters of the severing mundane tier and dividing soul tier. Naturally, to see a celestial king with their own eyes was extremely exciting, so much that they were about to cry. "My lord, you have caused trouble." A person approached from the street and said, "A few days ago I saw with my own eyes a young master of the Yun clan accompanying this person, so the identity of this person must be extraordinary. My lord, you had best leave quickly." Hearing this, the people around inhaled sharply, showing an expression of great reverence. They didn't know Situ Tai-sun, but they knew what the Yun clan symbolized. The clan was right on top of them, right? Who of those that came to the clan's territory would not know the power of the Yun clan? To have a relationship with the Yun clan was incredible. Not to mention Situ Tai-sun's own background. As long as the Yun clan was willing to stand up for him, what celestial king could bear up to such fury? To speak of nothing else, Ling Han was already very powerful and freakish, right? Hadn't he still died here? The large black dog couldn't help being amused. He was not afraid of the Yun clan now, of course, and said smilingly, "So what about the Yun clan, as long as they dare to come, Grandpa? I will destroy them with one hand." The corners of everyone's mouth twitched. Situ Tai-san had been bragging before, but now the large black dog was even more able to talk nonsense. It was a pity that none of them dared to refute. "Why, you still don't believe it?" the large black dog barked. "I will sit here for the whole day today and wait for the Yun clan to come." Sure enough, he sat down on the side, but one paw could not help but habitually stick up, trying to scratch his neck, and it was very hard to hold back the urge. Everyone didn't dare to persuade him anymore. This was a celestial king, so who would dare to talk too much in front of him? After a while, sure enough, someone from the Yun clan came. The Yun clan was located in the clouds, and they naturally descended from the sky. There were 2 people in total, both of whom were extremely handsome young men. When they saw Situ Tai-san planted in the ground, they showed anger. "Brother Tai Long, my brother had an accident in the territory of our Yun clan. I will definitely give you an explanation for this," said a young man who was dressed in green. The other person, who was dressed in black, nodded. "Of course, I believe Brother Aokong." That young man in green clothes was Yun Aokong. Not only were there many warriors who came to pay their respects to the sacred site of Ling Han's battle, there were also many disciples from the martial academy who were interested in it. They were all people who had seen how freakish Ling Han could be with their own eyes and were very interested in the secret of Ling Han's power. When Ling Han was still alive, of course they didn't dare to do anything, but now that Ling Han was dead, they gained some ideas. Maybe they could find where Ling Han was buried and obtain everything that had once belonged to him. Therefore, Yun Aokong returned. The person dressed in black was named Situ Tai Long, and he was also a disciple of the martial academy. He was also a descendant of the Situ clan. The Situ clan was a heavenly venerable tier, noble clan, with an elder of their clan that was a 4th tier, heavenly venerate, and that background was even stronger than the Yun clans. "What does the culprit look like?" Yun Aokong asked the surrounding people. Everyone exchanged looks, a strange feeling rising up in their heart. It was weird to ask what the culprit looked like when the culprit was right there. Some of them stretched out their fingers and pointed at the large black dog. He looked similar. Yun Aokong didn't even think that the large black dog was the culprit, and thought that everyone was using the large black dog for comparison. "Your grandpa is the one," the large black dog declared proudly. He was actually someone who would bully the weak but tremble before the strong, so he was naturally completely unconcerned about Yun Aokong. Yun Aokong was stunned for a moment and then burst into anger. "You're so arrogant. You beat someone, yet didn't run away, and you're still waiting here. Just how far are you looking down on the Yun clan? Do you think you are Ling Han?" Yun Aokong was furious. Now that Ling Han had caused such trouble in their clan, any average celestial king dared to come to their Yun clan and flaunt their arrogance. Chapter 2699. 2699 An Imposter. Chapter 2699. 2699 An Imposter. 2699 An Imposter. Yun Aokong looked at the large black dog and suddenly felt apprehensive. From his point of view, the person in front of him didn't have any strong aura circulating about him, but was just so perverse that he felt a chill down his spine. However, being able to defeat Situ Tai-san, he would have to be a celestial king, right? Both of them were celestial kings, but he wasn't able to see through the depth of his opponent's strength. Could it be that the other party's cultivation level was actually higher than his own? "What is your name?" He decided to first test the large black dog's strength. "I'm the Black King," said the large black dog loftily. "Black King." Yun Aokong murmured under his breath and started a frantic search in his mind, wondering whether he had previously heard of or seen someone with this name. After a round of searching, There was indeed someone named Black King in his memory, but none could match with this perverse man in front of him. "Why aren't you prostrating and kneeling down in my presence?" the large black dog demanded boldly. Yun Aokong felt apprehensive, but it was naturally impossible for him to be afraid of his opponent in his own territory. "Did you think that every person was Ling Han?" "Sir, you are too arrogant." Yun Aokong said menacingly. This person was ignorant indeed. Didn't he know how powerful the Yun clan was? "When I clean out your clan's treasure chamber, you will know how arrogant I am," the large black dog shouted, his eyes gleaming with greed in addition to the perverseness in his gaze. Yun Aokong was furious. This person actually had the guts to think of attacking their Yun clan treasure chamber. Situ Tailong couldn't help laughing and said, "Brother Aokong, it seems that your noble clan needs to start killing people. Otherwise everyone will think that it's easy to bully the Yun clan." Yun Aokong nodded. Did most people think that the Yun clan had become weak because of the incident caused by Ling Han? Now any random celestial king would dare to walk all over him. This was really too insolent. "Sir, allow me to test your strength." Yun Aokong took a step, and boom, his aura exploded. The large black dog obviously could suppress Yun Aokong with just one hand, but if he didn't make use of someone who could be ordered around, then would he still be him? "Little Han, go on my behalf," he yelled at Ling Han. "Pa!" Ling Han kicked towards the large black dog, causing the large black dog to dash off hurriedly. "Hayu." Yun Aokong looked at Ling Han with a strange expression. This person's appearance was so familiar, but he couldn't recall whom he resembled at the moment. "Hey, he looks a bit like the person who is already dead," Situ Tailong said. Yun Aokong suddenly realized that this person did look a little like Ling Han, but obviously he didn't impersonate him very well, because Ling Han had a domineering aura, and even the sun couldn't suppress his splendor. However, the person in front of him had a subtle aura and had no distinctive features. He was standing there like an ordinary person. Since Ling Han had been born and set the record for heaven-defying battle merits, he had also won the favor of countless young people, with all eagerness to pursue him and follow suit. So it wasn't surprising to see a person with appearance and temperament similar to Ling Han's. It was just that this person in front of him wasn't a good enough impersonation. "Humph, I hated that person the most, and yet you insist on making yourself look like him. This is courting death," Yun Aokong said coldly. He once again raised his hand towards Ling Han to grab him. "Pa!" Ling Han waved his hand and directed a slap at Yun Aokong from a distance. With his strength, was there any possibility for Yun Aokong to resist? Raising a hand, his palm landed and the man collapsed. When Yun Aokong fell, a strange thought crossed his mind. Why had he collapsed like this again? There was a feeling of déjà vu about this. Situ Tailong was shocked his strength was almost on the same level as Yun Aokong's. But Yun Aokong wasn't enough to be Ling Han's match for even one exchange. So far from it, in fact, that Yun Aokong fell with just a single strike launched from a distance. This was absolutely crushing strength. Who the hell are you? Being so powerful, and yet having to imitate someone, it was truly such a shame. Ling Han said evenly. Situ Tailong scoffed. Ling Han was already dead. It couldn't be that the dignified Yun clan would release fake news. "Sir, you are also an overlord yourself. So why impersonate a dead person?" he asked. This was him stalling for time, as he just wasn't Ling Han's match, and could only wait for the Yun clan to send reinforcements. Ling Han chuckled and looked at the large black dog. "Why doesn't anyone believe me when I tell the truth?" "That's because you've been telling too many lies." The large black dog took the opportunity to speak in reprimand. "Little Han, when one does bad things, heavens are watching and there will be retribution. So you have to be respectful and courteous to Grandpa Dog, who is your great benefactor." Situ Tailong was trembling with anger. His younger brother was planted into the street like a tree, while his companion was knocked out by a single blow, And yet, these two people were still teasing each other in front of him. This was too arrogant. As for the Yun clan, why hadn't anyone come? Shio, shio, shio! At this moment, 5 people descended from the sky, all showing off their powerful aura. This was the territory of the Yun clan, and they were the celestial kings of the Yun clan, so naturally there would be no need to conceal anything. These 5 people were all 8th heaven celestial kings, and moving together they would just be able to take on a 9th heaven celestial king. Who's the madman to have the impertinence to come to my Yun clan and cause trouble? A celestial king shouted, his sweeping gaze landing on Ling Han and the large black dog. His gaze focused upon Ling Han, and he just felt that this young man seemed very familiar. I'm here to collect a debt, Ling Han said lightly. Collecting a debt? Why was it so popular nowadays to come to Yun clan to collect debts? It was all because Ling Han had set a terrible example. He really wanted to dig him out of the ground and flog his corpse for 10,000 years. Situ, Tai Long folded his arms over his chest and said coldly, he said his name was Ling Han. Ling Han. The 5 8th heaven celestial kings all sneered. Indeed, the person in front of them did resemble Ling Han, but the difference was also obvious. And the most important thing was that Ling Han was already dead. How could a dead person still be standing here? Who the hell are you, and why did you come to Yun clan to cause trouble? A celestial king asked. Who gave you orders to do so? If asked to believe that a celestial king would come to the Yun clan to cause trouble, none of them would believe it. How could there be so many audacious people in the world? Don't you feel ashamed of causing trouble under a dead person's name? Ling Han couldn't help but find it funny. When did he die? I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. Once I suppress all of you, Yun Haoyang should come out. Ling Han said with a smile as he stretched out his hand to grab a celestial king. How dare you? The 5 8th heaven celestial kings acted together simultaneously to fight off Ling Han. Ling Han stretched open his palm. It was as if the sky was collapsing. The 5 celestial kings countered it together, but they couldn't block the strike, and pa, all of them collapsed. At the sight of this, the people around them couldn't help but gape. This was ridiculous. Those were actually 5 8th heaven celestial kings, but they were no match for Ling Han. A 9th heaven celestial king? Absolutely. They all gazed at Ling Han with admiration. He was one of the 9th heaven celestial kings, who stood at the highest peak of the celestial path. Who wouldn't admire him? Ling Han planted the 5 celestial kings upside down in the ground, one by one. Brat, you have such a bad taste, the large black dog said. Ling Han looked at Situ Tai Long and said, What should I do with you? Situ, Tai Long also looked at Ling Han and extended a finger that was trembling violently. Why, you really are Ling Han. You are not dead. Being so unbelievably strong, with appearance so similar to Ling Han's, and even behaving similarly, who else could he be if not Ling Han? The Yun clan had made a huge mistake. This bringer of calamity and freak wasn't dead at all. Chapter 2700. 2700. He is Ling Han. Chapter 2700. 2700. He is Ling Han. 2700. He is Ling Han. Moreover, there was also a difference in strength between weaker and stronger pseudo-heavenly venerates. When 10 celestial kings blocked one, then the one who was blocked would have been the weakest pseudo-heavenly venerate. Shio! At this moment, someone in the sky shot out an arrow, so fast that it looked like a stream of light. So what if he's a pseudo-heavenly venerate, this the Yun clan? A majestic voice which made everyone's blood bubble and boil sounded. An elite made a move, albeit not Yun Yanghao, but a celestial king at the peak of the 9th heaven. When these words fell, everyone in the Yun clan felt motivated. Yes, they were the Yun clan after all. Even if a pseudo-heavenly venerate attacked, they would be able to stop him by dispatching more 9th heaven celestial kings. Ling Han humphed. raised his other hand, and launched a strike towards the golden arrow. Pum! With the impact of a single punch, the golden arrow instantly shattered into countless flashes of light. If there wasn't a pseudo-heavenly venerate to take action, then who could stop Ling Han? His right hand exerted force, and boom, the white-colored hand pressed down abruptly. Such copious power was not something that the 13 Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings could jointly fight against, and this instantly caused those Celestial Kings to collapse all over the ground. In this exchange of blows, 14 Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings were completely defeated. However, due to the eruption of his full strength, Ling Han was unable to completely control his own aura, and boom, 9 ribbons of iridescent light appeared on his body. 9 Ninth Heaven Celestial King, everyone in the Yun clan said in a trembling voice, as if they were in mourning. If Ling Han had really been a pseudo-heavenly venerate, they wouldn't have been so shocked, but Ling Han's cultivation level was only the 9th heaven. This was really too terrifying. A 9th heaven Celestial King had done what only a pseudo-heavenly venerate was capable of doing. How freakish was that, and how frightening. Ling Han. Someone finally said a name naturally. It had to be the catastrophe that had brought shame to the Yun clan. This guy wasn't dead, and had even advanced to the 9th heaven. As they had feared, Ling Han at the cultivation level of the 8th heaven was just about able to battle against a pseudo-heavenly venerate. So when he had advanced to the 9th heaven, he would really possess the strength of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Why aren't you dead yet? Ling Han laughed. What you're asking is really too mediocre. If I am dead, then is the person standing here a ghost? Little Han, he's cursing you. On the sidelines, the large black dog added fuel to the fire. With a shake of his body, he transformed into a dog again. Grandpa Dog in this form is still the most handsome, he said shamelessly. The people of Yun clan were on the verge of despair. Yun Haoyang had taken action, but he still couldn't kill a Ling Han at the 8th heaven. Now that Ling Han had advanced to the 9th heaven, would there be anyone in the Yun clan who could stop him? Their Grand Elder was still in the realm battlefield, and wasn't able to withdraw from it at all. I really didn't expect that you would not only survive, but even go a step further. Yun Haoyang's deep voice rang out. Xiao, he descended from the sky and landed with a single step, not showing any domineering behavior. Elder Hao. All the members of Yun clan immediately knelt on the ground, although there were those who were actually higher in seniority than Yun Haoyang among them. The strong would be respected. They once again regained confidence, as they had a real pseudo-heavenly venerate in their own clan, and therefore would definitely not lose to Ling Han. Ling Han smiled lightly. Were you thinking that it was obvious that I was not as powerful as you, and yet I still fought with you for such a long time? So I had to be an idiot, no? I have to say, you are indeed freakish to have broken through to the 9th heaven by using me. Yun Yanghao was deeply rueful. Which 9th heaven Celestial King, Heavenly Venerate, and Pseudo-Heavenly Venerate wouldn't spend countless years when overcoming this obstacle? This was the last and strongest obstruction of heaven and earth, and it required a lot of hard work to break through it. And Ling Han belonged to the most supreme freakish kind, and had successfully advanced with the help of a pseudo-heavenly venerate, which made the latter feel inferior. Having said so much, do you want to fight or surrender? Ling Han shouted. Chapter 2701. 2701 Defeating a Pseudo-Heavenly Venerate. Chapter 2701. 2701 Defeating a Pseudo-Heavenly Venerate. 2701 Defeating a Pseudo-Heavenly Venerate. There is no one from the Yun clan that would surrender without a fight, Yun Haoyang stated evenly, but these words were powerful and resonating. Ling Han laughed loudly. Though the Yun clan's way of doing things is not impressive, you as an individual are just enough to be considered passable. Let's go all out in a battle then. Yun Haoyang's figure rose, directly soaring into the clouds. The present Ling Han's cultivation level had increased, So should the two battle, the force of the shock waves created would be terrifying. They definitely had to take their battle far from the Yun clan. Otherwise, with the impact of any single shock wave, the Yun clan would have to be rebuilt. With a bounce, Ling Han also shot into the skies. Boom, boom, boom. The two of them did not waste time on speaking another word, and immediately erupted into a great battle. Under usual battle prowess, neither of them would be disadvantaged in their exchange of blows. But everyone knew that Yun Haoying had lost, and it was a terrible loss at that. Just how great was the gap between pseudo-heavenly venerable tier and celestial king tier? This should have been a completely one-sided battle, but now not only could he not suppress his opponent, they were even battling to a tie. Yun Haoying released a battle cry, using various secret techniques casually. He was already standing at the pinnacle of the celestial path, and various regulations channeled according to his will. He plucked streaks of great Tao easily one after another, and they turned into various weapons that launched a fierce offensive on Ling Han. Ling Han was not afraid at all. He was also standing at the pinnacle of the celestial path. In terms of height, not only was he not inferior to Yun Haoying, he would also not lose to a 7th tier heavenly venerate either. This was already the limit in terms of regulations. You could extract regulations, and so would I. Who would be more afraid of whom? Countless stars fell, turning into innumerable shooting stars that streaked through the world. These were all starstones, and there were even some starstones that contained divine metal. After many years, there would definitely be countless people coming here to hunt for treasure. If they could obtain divine metal, that naturally would mean becoming rich overnight. But now, everyone could only flee in a panic. With so many stars dropping down from the skies, and there were slivers of the two great elites, martial intent wrapped around some of them at that if one of them landed on a person. That person would definitely die immediately. Pum! Ling Han and Yun Haoying exchanged a blow, and both of them were sent flying as far as 50 kilometers backwards. However, if one compared closely, they would discover that Ling Han actually retreated around 30 meters, less than Yun Haoying. This kind of advantage was practically negligible, but it was a clear sign that Ling Han's battle prowess was indeed stronger than Yun Haoying's, even if it was just a little bit stronger. Yun Haoying's expression was filled with shock and disbelief. He had already guessed that after Ling Han advanced into the 9th heaven, his battle prowess would possibly not be inferior to his own, but Ling Han's strength reaching this extent was something that he could not accept at all. He had actually been surpassed by a 9th heaven celestial king. It was not because of the heavenly venerate Tool's strength, but rather because his battle prowess was outmatched, and it was indeed a pure suppression of strength. Using this momentum, Yun Haoying retreated quickly, and then used the heavenly venerate technique. He extracted a sliver of the fundamental power of the Genesis world, and solidified it into a golden arrow. This was the strongest secret technique of the Yun clan. If it was used by the Grand Elder of the Yun clan, one arrow could kill a 2nd tier heavenly venerate. Ling Han did not dodge, but rather went forwards to greet it head-on. However, he dared not be careless. Using the 5 elements lightning technique, he wrapped the lightning around his fists, and 9-colored lightning instantly flashed brightly. Go! Yun Haoying shot the arrow. This arrow was indescribably fast. Pum! Ling Han threw a punch, which landed on the golden arrow. Instantly, the brilliant light burst like a firework. Even the stars that were very far away fell as well, completely incapable of bearing the wave of power created by the unleashed battle prowess of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. It should be known that there was an instant that the battle prowess of the two elites had soared to the height of the heavenly venerable tier after releasing this powerful attack. Just how terrifying was that? If this was in the celestial realm, it would not be condoned by the heaven and earth, and they would send lightning to strike the two of them down. Ling Han roared. His fighting spirit blazed, and he sped up towards Yun Haoying. brandishing both fists in a flurry of punches. Pung, 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 pung. His strikes rained down. Yun Haoyang was both angered and stunned. If Ling Han had drawn the divine demon sword, he would have willingly admitted defeat. That was because there was nothing to be aggrieved over upon having lost to a heavenly venerate tool. But when both of them were fighting with their own individual strength, and he still lost to a ninth heaven, how could he endure such humiliation? Unfortunately, faced with that storm of blows from Ling Han, he was actually feeling strained. How was this possible? He was a pseudo-heavenly venerate who had had his body tempered by the fundamental power of the Genesis world, and had an amazing body art. For example, a ninth heaven celestial king could only launch 10,000 attacks in a single breath, yet he could deliver 100,000 attacks. Thus, even when power was equal on both sides, he could also use this kind of intensive round of attacks to suppress all celestial kings. But in Ling Han's case, he could deliver 100,001 attacks. Even though there was only one extra attack, his advantage would build up slowly over time and ultimately form a qualitative change. Could you believe it? His body art, the body art of a pseudo-heavenly venerate, was actually no match for Ling Han. This was natural. Before Ling Han had reached the celestial king tier, he had already been able to extract void particle energy to temper his body, and judging from the breach of cultivation level, it had far surpassed Yun Haoyang. Moreover, void particle energy was stronger than that unique power of the dimension, which naturally meant that Ling Han's body art was slightly superior. Pung, pung, pung. In a countless clash of blows, Yun Haoyang finally could no longer block Ling Han's fists, and they landed on him, forming a frightening impact. Impossible. Heavens! Seeing this scene, every member of the Yun clan could not believe it. There were some that were even grabbing their heads, falling to their knees and sobbing. Their pseudo-heavenly venerate was going to lose, defeated by a ninth heaven celestial king. This was an extraordinary, extreme humiliation. The longer the battle continued, the more attacks Yun Haoyang would sustain. Fists landed on his face, body, and legs, causing his body to distort, and a great many grooves appeared. There was not the slightest bit of overstatement about this kind of battle. Every blow was a clash of absolute power. Whoever's speed and power could not catch up, the disadvantage would be immediately apparent and would be endlessly compounded upon. If it was not for the fact that those below the celestial king tier could not see the battle clearly at all, even mountain river tiers would be able to easily distinguish that it was only a matter of time for Yun Haoyang to suffer defeat. The celestial kings of the Yun clan seemed to have lost their souls. This was something that they could never accept. Yun Haoyang fought fiercely and did not take a single step back. If he fled, Ling Han would only be slightly superior to him and could not possibly stop him. Even if Ling Han drew the divine demon sword, that might just be barely enough. But if Yun Haoyang fought to the death without retreating like this, then it would be two elites meeting on a narrow path, and the stronger would come out on top. He continued to suffer injuries, and his injuries accumulated without end. By the time it reached a certain point, he finally lost. Pum! He dropped down from the skies, crashing heavily on the ground, and creating a huge pit where he landed. Elder Hao! The celestial kings of the Yun clan all rushed towards him, and when they discovered that while Yun Haoyang was very seriously injured, it did not threaten his life, so they finally sighed in relief. Ling Han also descended from the skies, his aura flooding out like a wave. Though every member of the Yun clan felt extreme hatred for Ling Han, none of them dared to make a sound as they were overwhelmed by his aura. They could only shiver in apprehension. "Old Black, let's go and loot them," Ling Han said to the large black dog. "Sure thing." The large black dog was practically bursting with glee. He had already waited countless years for this day to come. They entered into the Yun clan and searched around in a grand manner. The only thing they didn't do was dig into the foundations. But no one from the Yun clan dared to stop them. In fact, they did not even dare to rebuke them, and could only watch helplessly as the most valuable possessions of the clan that had been accumulated over several epochs were all robbed. This boy's power has already formed, and there is no one that can stop him now. The celestial kings of the Yun clan all mused ruefully, and were even more filled with regret. Why had they stood on opposing sides to Ling Han before? Though this guy was the type to hold a grudge, he had never bullied others on his own volition. The only ones that could be blamed for this were themselves. Chapter 2702. 2702 Burst Cloud Volcano. Chapter 2702. 2702 Burst Cloud Volcano. 2702 Burst Cloud Volcano. The power of regulation here was extremely intense. The whole volcano was like countless ninth heaven celestial kings overlapping one another. Even Wally could not see through it and discover the whereabouts of the crimson inferno divine flamestone in that manner. They thus began their search on the mountain. This mountain was extremely shocking in size. There was crimson lava flowing everywhere on the ground, and there were only a pitifully few safe areas. Furthermore, even ninth heaven's celestial kings would still face extreme pressure in the safe areas. The waves of flames rippled, and the slightest distraction could cause one to burn alive, turning into a ball of fire. If it was only that, they would just have to take more caution. But the problem here was that there were actually living creatures in such waves of lava. When Ling Han and company had traveled a stretch, they saw the lava splash towards them. They only thought that this was a natural phenomenon initially and thought nothing of it. However, without walking too many steps, another spurt of lava was splashing towards them. They dodged again. Fuck, what's going on here? Is there something behind the lava that is attacking me? The large black dog shouted. This was as if a coincidence. But how could there be so many coincidences? He sent out a palm strike, and as the force of his strike landed, the lava suddenly exploded and splashed out like the surface of water. Ling Han immediately saw that there actually was a fish in the lava. It waved its tail, and another fountain of lava suddenly splashed towards Ling Han and the others. Damn fish! Grandpa Dog is going to cook and eat you. The large black dog was enraged. He was very wary of the lava and did not dare directly stretch out a paw to touch it. Thus he stimulated Great Tao and wanted to use Great Tao as he would use his paw to pluck this fish out of the lava. However, when the hand formed from Great Tao grabbed out, it was immediately ignited, forcefully melting into a huge hole. Pa! The large fish dropped back into the lava, and with a wave of its tail, it immediately dived beneath the lava. It could not be seen or sensed any longer. The large black dog yowled in fury. It would always be him taking advantage of others. Yet now he had been ambushed by a fish, and the latter even managed to escape. This naturally was extremely infuriating for him. Ling Han smiled. It just swims around in flames, and you are actually planning to cook it. The large black dog bared his teeth. This flaming fish was formed by the melding of the highest level of regulations of fire, so what would be the point of grilling it on fire? No, it has angered me. No matter what, Grandpa Dog is determined to eat it. He no longer cared about the feasibility of this action. When it comes out, let's see if we can capture it. I myself am also quite curious, Ling Han said. It was not strange that regulations had taken form. What was strange was that this fish seemed to have gained self-awareness. Okay. The large black dog rubbed his paws together. He was sure that even a creature manifested from the highest level of regulations could only surrender helplessly if he worked together with Ling Han. What is that? Ling Han looked into the distance and saw that the lava that had originally been flowing slowly had become violent. A huge wave rose and was sweeping towards them. Chapter 2703. 2703 Finding Dushi. Chapter 2703. 2703 Finding Dushi. 2703 Finding Dushi. A wave of lava was rising and then crashing towards them. Ling Han frowned. This lava had originally been flowing calmly. How could it possibly suddenly rise up in a wave? Previously, it was a fish that had caused trouble, sweeping out the lava to splash towards them. Yet now it was a wave that was assailing them. If Ling Han was told this was a natural phenomenon, he wouldn't believe it even if it killed him. Let's retreat first. Ling Han grabbed Wally. Their figures rose and descended, escaping from the direction that the wave was attacking. Yet it seemed like the wave had eyes of its own. It actually switched directions and continued to rush towards them. The large black dog wanted to evade again, but Ling Han shook his head. Don't dodge. Let's fight. If they rose up, the waves of heat intertwining in the air were actually even hotter than where there wasn't any lava. Boom! The wave of lava reached them. Now that it had gotten close enough, they could see that there were actually fishes moving around in the wave. This wave was actually caused by a great many fishes. Ling Han humphed and said, I knew that was the case. He clenched his hand into a fist and threw a punch at the wave. Pum! The frightening force of the punch surged forwards. This was a pseudo-heavenly venerable tear attack. The great wave immediately exploded into bits. There were at least 100 fire fishes inside, and they were all blasted into the skies. Some directly exploded into sparks, but the majority still fell back down, completely intact. Ling Han stretched out a hand again, and he instantly grabbed 3 fire fishes. He did not directly use his bare hand to grab them, because he could feel the waves of heat exuding from the fire fishes. They were hot enough to cause damage to even their defense. Haha, damn bug, just try and be arrogant again. The large black dog laughed loudly. Faced with that wave from before, even a peak stage 9th heaven celestial king could only flee in a panic, because the attacks he delivered would not be able to do anything to this kind of fiery wave at all. His power would be directly melted and destroyed by the regulations of fire. But when a pseudo-heavenly venerate moved, the effects were immediately different. Pa, pa, pa! The fire fishes all fell back into the lava. They discovered that some of their companions had fallen into enemy hands, and immediately launched another assault. With a flick of their tails, they splashed out the crimson lava at Ling Han. Ling Han threw out another punch. Overwhelming power surged past, and pung! The lava was instantly sent flowing backwards. More than a dozen fire fish were crushed into bits. These fire fishes finally became afraid. The survivors quickly fled with a wave of their tails. What exactly is this thing? The large black dog approached to take a look. Ling Han was also studying them. These 3 fire fishes were indeed formed by regulations of fire. Ling Han could achieve that, as well only had to extract the regulations of fire, but it was much too difficult to make it so that they had intelligence. Probably only the heaven and earth had that kind of ability. Outrageously bold. He tried to swallow one of the fire fishes in a single gulp. After entering his stomach, it became a ball of fire, threatening to burn and melt all his organs with its heat. Ling Han forcefully suppressed it, using supreme might to grind out the regulations of fire bit by bit. He sighed and refined one of the fire fishes, yet did not gain anything from it at all. Forget it. Grandpa Dog doesn't want to eat it. The large black dog shook his head and took a few steps back. Ling Han destroyed the remaining 2 fire fishes. If it was just 1 or 2 of them, he naturally would have no fear. But if it was a whole school of fire fishes, even he would frown when numbers reached a certain extent. It was just like how a pseudo-heavenly venerate could be ganged up on by over 100 peak stage 9th heaven celestial kings. If he did not quickly charge out of the siege, his fate would also be death. This really is a dangerous place. Ling Han nodded. If it were not for the fact that he had pseudo-heavenly venerable tear strength, or if it had been any other 9th heaven celestial king, they really could only have fled. And they had just entered the vicinity of the volcano. Who knew how many more dangers there lay within? They continued onwards, their advance not very fast. This place was filled with traps as well. Just when you clearly saw a rock protruding, it would immediately explode and spurt out boiling lava when you stepped on it, and no one could guard against that. Ling Han was still fine, but the large black dog had a much worse time, so it was always jumping around on 2 legs. In the first place, this volcano was shockingly huge, and with how their speed was restrained, they could only search a small area in a whole day. Naturally, they were not so lucky to just happen to come upon Du Shi and the others. Furthermore, it was not definite that the 3 of them would be moving around together. If it was just one of them, it would be even more difficult to find them. After a short period of rest, they continued their search on the next day. 3 days, 4 days, they searched endlessly, exploring this volcano bit by bit, but after over a dozen days, they had still only covered around 1% of the whole area and found nothing. They were very patient. Exploring this kind of dangerous location needed extreme caution in the first place. There were not just fire fishes here. There were also other random creatures, like fire crabs, fire scorpions, and fire snakes. They were all formed from regulations of fire. Though they themselves were very weak, they had reached the pinnacle in terms of regulations. Even when a peak stage 9th heaven celestial king attacked them, they could possibly kill their enemy, yet wound themselves severely in the process. Still, in front of Ling Han, a celestial king who possessed power at the level of the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, they were all trash. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. Ling Han and company had also explored around 1/6 of the total area here, but still could not find any clues. Another 2 days later. Practically at the same time, Ling Han and the large black dog pricked their ears, while Wally looked towards their left, 2 rays of green light shooting from his eyes. Very quickly, they saw a person shooting over from a distance, but he was not running directly towards them. Clearly, he was not running over just because he had discovered the 3 of them. He naturally could not run on a straight course. The floating rocks here had absolutely no pattern, so he was running on a serpentine course. Du Shi! Ling Han exclaimed, slightly surprised. There had been no trace of him, even after they had been searching for half a year, but they had now found him effortlessly. However, he quickly frowned. Du Shi was not alone. There was a chain of people that were in hot pursuit of him. He was being hunted. Ling Han's eyes focused, and his killing intent involuntarily blazed wildly. Among the people who were hunting down Du Shi, he recognized one of them. The Azure Ghost Celestial King, the big boss of Ghost King City at the Celestial King Graveyard. He was actually here. Previously, when Zhou Heng had swept through the Celestial King Graveyard, he had not found Desolate Moon, and those 9th heaven Celestial Kings had long since disappeared. Yet now the Azure Ghost Celestial King had actually appeared here. What did that mean? It was extremely possible that after Desolate Moon and those 9th heaven Celestial Kings left the Celestial King Graveyard, they had gone into hiding in this volcano. This place was covered by supreme regulations, so if a heavenly venerate did not come personally, it was impossible that they could see through to what was hidden beneath the cover of lava here. Furthermore, this was a dangerous place for others. But if you had tens of thousands of 9th heaven Celestial Kings, how could it be that their combined force was still not enough to deal with those fire fish, fire scorpions, and so on? After so many years passing, Desolate Moon had probably long since completed his mission, and the Azure Ghost Celestial King and the others had all advanced to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. Otherwise, with Du Shi's strength, how could it be possible that he would be so terribly pursued by over a dozen Celestial Kings? "Brother Du!" Ling Han shouted, and communicated with Du Shi via divine sense. Ling Han! Du Shi was both stunned and delighted. He had not expected that he would encounter Ling Han here. However, he did not run in the direction of Ling Han. Instead, he took a turn and communicated with him via divine sense as well. These people are all influenced by hysteria and have lost their minds. However, their strength is astonishing, and they have already become pseudo-heavenly venerates. Return immediately to the Martial Academy and bring the news back. I will try my best to draw them away. Chapter 2704 270 for the Azure Ghost, Celestial King App. Chapter 2704 270 for the Azure Ghost, Celestial King App. 270 for the Azure Ghost, Celestial King App. With a tap of his foot, Ling Han stepped on the air. Pung! His whole person shot out, descending. Tong! He landed, and did not distinguish where he was at all. He directly dropped into the lava, and instantly created a splash of lava that was several hundred meters tall. Practically this whole area of lava had been splashed out from the impact. This commotion was so great that Du Shi and the others couldn't help but turn to look at him. When they discovered that this person was actually Ling Han, Du Shi was instantly dumbfounded. How could it be Ling Han? How could he possibly have such great speed? Why had he run over? Even if he was loyal, that was not the right way to show it. Ling Han smiled slightly. Brother Du, you ran too quickly and made it very tiring for me to chase after you. Du Shi could only gape and did not know what to say in response. Yet those pseudo-heavenly venerates that had pursued him would not just stand blankly there. It was true that they were only left with the instincts to battle, but this also meant that they could completely ignore anything surprising. Xiao, xiao, xiao! They all charged towards Du Shi. Du Shi wanted to flee, but it was already too late. He could only take it head-on. He circled his hands, and he unleashed his full power with a loud shout. Pum! A heavy bang rang out, and Du Shi was instantly sent flying. Just when it looked like he was about to fall into the lava, a figure flashed. Ling Han had long darted out, catching the back of his robes just in time. Ling Han, leave me be. Run. It is more important to report the news. Du Shi uttered, coughing up blood. Having survived after sustaining a blow that was practically the combined power of so many pseudo-heavenly venerates, he was indeed deserving of his reputation as one of the big shots of the Martial Academy, an overlord of Ninth Heaven. Ling Han smiled slightly. Brother Du, just rest on the side, and see how I will kill all enemies in my way. He placed Du Shi on a floating rock, and then turned to look towards those pseudo-heavenly venerates. These pseudo-heavenly venerates showed no respect. To say nothing of the fact that Ling Han was only in the Ninth Heaven, even if they were facing a 7th-tier heavenly venerate, they would still continue their charge without the slightest hesitation. Thus they all moved. Xiao, xiao, xiao! Du Shi could no longer bring himself to watch. It was clear that death was inevitable for Ling Han, and with the serious injuries that Du Shi had now sustained, he, too, would not be able to escape. He felt great regret. He feared that he would have to disappoint AMU and the others. Shua! A sword light flashed past, dazzling the skies, and also causing everything else to fade with its brilliance. Du Shi couldn't help but narrow his eyes, and when he opened them again, he could see that 7 out of the 10 pseudo-heavenly venerates had actually already fallen. Either their heads were severed, or they had been cut in half. Ling Han had killed 7 pseudo-heavenly venerates with a single strike. No matter how weak these pseudo-heavenly venerates were, they were still pseudo-heavenly venerates. They were stronger than even the strongest Ninth Heaven, Celestial King. A light flashed through Du Shi's mind, and he exclaimed, You have broken through to the Ninth Heaven! Aside from this, there was no other possible explanation. Since Ling Han had already started killing, he naturally would not continue to hold back at all. He continued his charge, and he soon killed the other 3 pseudo-heavenly venerates as well. However, after the battle, his face was also extremely flushed, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. How could having 10 pseudo-heavenly venerates attacking him at the same time be just a game? Chapter 2705 2705 Rescue. Chapter 2705 2705 Rescue. 2705 Rescue. This was also because these pseudo-heavenly venerates lacked intelligence, or they would not have clashed head-on with Ling Han, but chosen to adopt a moving-about strategy as well as mutually supported each other. While the strength of such 10 people might still not suppress Ling Han, it would at least allow them to stay undefeated. But now, 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates were slain as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, and the only price was the mouthful of blood Ling Han spat out. "Brother Ling, you really are extraordinary." Previously, Du Shi had always called Ling Han by his name, as he himself was at the 9th heaven, while Ling Han was only at the 8th heaven. However, since Han was similarly at the 9th heaven now, Du Shi had completely acknowledged Ling Han as an existence of the same level. Moreover, Ling Han's strength far exceeded his own, even though helped by the divine demon sword. Ling Han's strength could not be denied. Ling Han chuckled and put away the divine demon sword. "Brother Du, what's going on?" Ling Han asked. Du Shi's expression became solemn. "Mu and the others are still trapped in the mountain. We have to hurry and rescue them." He paused and then smacked his forehead. "My head's all muddled because of the urgency. Let me start from the beginning." The matter was very simple. More than 200,000 years ago, the 3 of them came here for a training trip, attempting to find an opportunity for breakthrough. After tens of thousands of years of bloody battles, they had gotten some inspiration, but there were still some deficiencies. During this period, they had also met some people who fought with them together in battles. That was until 100,000 years ago, when they accidentally discovered an ancient cave and took the risk to venture inside. Unfortunately, the outcome was that not only did they not find any natural treasures, they poked a hornet's nest. Inside, there were countless pseudo-heavenly venerates in seclusion, and under the order of a mysterious person, many pseudo-heavenly venerates were awakened and proceeded to completely besiege them. Fortunately, Du Shi and the others had made a lot of preparations before they had come here to train. They even possessed heavenly venerable tier defensive treasures, but still couldn't kill their opponents to escape from the siege. This hardship lasted for 100,000 years, and they had almost exhausted the heavenly venerable tier treasures. They had no choice but to forcefully break through the encirclement. It was obviously unrealistic for everyone to escape together. Since Du Shi was the fastest, the others covered for him so he could break through the siege, hoping that he could escape to the Martial Academy and bring the powerful heavenly venerate here to flatten this place and rescue them while they were at it. Ling Han nodded and said, "Where is the exact location?" Du Shi pressed a finger onto Ling Han and transmitted to him the entire route which he had taken to escape. Ling Han thought for a while. "Brother Du, you should rush back to the Martial Academy to report the news. I'll think of a way to rescue Mu and the others. No matter how bad is the situation, I will delay them for a while until the arrival of reinforcements." Ling Han didn't commit to taking care of everything, because he knew Betrith, Desolate Moon were to bring out all the 9th heaven celestial kings. There ought to be tens of thousands of pseudo-heavenly venerates hidden in the volcano. With so many pseudo-heavenly venerates attacking together, even a second-tier heavenly venerate might not be able to handle it. Ling Han couldn't be sure, because he had no idea how powerful the battle prowess of a second-tier heavenly venerate could be. "Brother Ling," Du Shi objected instinctively. How could he let Ling Han fall into danger? "You should go to the Martial Academy to report the news, and I will go back and fight side by side with Mu and the others. Which one of us is stronger?" Ling Han said with a smile. Du Shi opened his mouth, but was at a loss for words. After a while he nodded. "Brother Ling, you must be cautious. Don't put yourself in danger." "I will definitely come back as soon as possible," he said with a serious expression. "All right." Ling Han nodded. Du Shi glanced at Ling Han again, took a deep breath, and set out. It wasn't appropriate to remain in this place for a long time, as it was already extremely dangerous in the first place. Should there be another wave of pursuers, he would definitely be finished. Ling Han went back first to meet up with the large black dog and Wally. What? You're going to save those people? The large black dog jumped up immediately after hearing this. Brat, don't think that you can run amok fearlessly just because you are impressive, awesome, and strong. That's tens of thousands of pseudo-heavenly venerates. If everyone throws a punch, you will probably be beaten flat even if you have successfully cultivated the indestructible divine metal physique. Tens of thousands of pseudo-heavenly venerate. This was something that was impossible to appear in the celestial realm, and the large black dog could not imagine how powerful this force would be. Ling Han smiled. Don't worry, I won't act recklessly. I will play it by ear. The large black dog tried to persuade him again, but Ling Han just wouldn't listen. Damn dog, I heard from Du Shi that there might be crimson inferno divine flame stone in that cave. The large black dog immediately stopped persuading. Crimson Inferno Divine Flamestone was the key to whether they could achieve cultivation of the indestructible divine metal physique. So he really had no way to refuse. You and Wally leave first, Ling Han said. Even if he didn't mention it, the large black dog didn't plan on staying here, and this was the case for Wally as well. The latter had always positioned himself as one meant for an analytical type of battle, and when it came to activities such as combat, he had never wanted to participate in them. Ling Han set off and walked towards the depths of the volcano. With the guidance of Du Shi's route, he naturally didn't have to take any deviating paths. It only took a day when he came to the place and saw a hole in the mountain wall where lava was flowing down, covering most of it. If one did not observe carefully, one would definitely not be able to find it. Ling Han channeled the indestructible heavens scroll, strode in, and the lava hit his body, all of it blocked by the golden seals, unable to touch his body. Inside this cave, there was crimson magma flowing everywhere and filled with supreme regulations of fire. There wasn't even any breathable air. Although Ling Han no longer needed to breathe air, due to habit, he still felt a little uncomfortable. There was no need to worry about the issue of lighting. The flowing of magma in this place illuminated the surroundings brightly. Ling Han strode forward. The cave was eerily quiet, with only the sound of magma flowing, which was very faint. There were many protruding stones on the wall of the cave, some of which were very sharp with magma attached to them. If one was to get scratched by these, it was likely to pierce the body, and supreme regulations of fire would be injected, which would instantly put to death even a ninth heaven celestial king. It wasn't only on the wall of the cave, but also on the ground, which was even more terrifying. If one was to step on them, the whole person might just be reduced to ashes in an instant. Ling Han didn't dare to be arrogant. After all, he had yet to achieve cultivation of the indestructible divine metal physique, and even if his body was to be like divine metal, it might also be burned and melted away. This was originally a place where divine metal could be melted. He moved forward cautiously and suddenly came to a wide clearing after walking for a while. Once again he saw a familiar scene. On the spacious flat ground, there lay a number of giant eggs surrounded by rays of black light. This place was actually extremely hot, but seeing these gigantic eggs actually caused a cold chill to rise up in one's body. As expected, Desolate Moon actually brought those celestial kings here and continued to communicate with Hysteria, whose whereabouts were still unknown, while transmitting great power. Atamu and others were not found here. Looking at these giant eggs, Ling Han thought of a risky idea. With the power of the divine demon sword, could it cut open the giant egg and send the pseudo-heavenly venerate inside it to hell? Now that these pseudo-heavenly venerate were in a state of seclusion and lacked the ability to fight back, even hundreds of millions of them would just be like trash, let alone tens of thousands. With this thought in mind, he could bear it no longer. He took out the divine demon sword, came up to a giant egg, and slashed it with the sword without hesitation. Pooh! Previously, he had not been able to break this giant egg, no matter what he tried. Yet now it had been sliced up so easily with a strike of the divine demon sword. Chapter 2706. 2706 Great Destruction. Chapter 2706. 2706 Great Destruction. 2706 Great Destruction. Boom! A larger number of pseudo-heavenly venerates were attacking madly, wanting to rip apart this entire canyon. Fortunately, though the mountain rocks could not withstand the violent force of pseudo-heavenly venerable tears, they seemed to have a life of their own. Very quickly they would grow out again, and their recovery speed was extremely quick. Precisely because of this, AMU and company managed to avert disaster and defend themselves for countless years. Ling Han. Seeing that the person who had rushed in was actually Ling Han, AMU and Kinyu both exclaimed. This was too unexpected. "Hey guys," Ling Han said with a chuckle, waving a hand in greeting. "Now is not the time for you guys to reminisce," someone said. He had a wine gourd in hand, which was spraying out green light. This light was very amazing, being capable of even blocking the attack of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Only then did AMU and Kinyu come back to their senses. They hurriedly joined the ranks of defense against the invasion of pseudo-heavenly venerates. Ling Han glanced at them. With him, there were a total of 8 people here. Only one of them was a woman, and from Du Shi's memories, he knew that her name was Lu Zian. These 7 people were all peak stage 9th heaven celestial kings, their evolution index either 11 or 12. They had come here so that they could obtain a trigger for their breakthrough to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. Otherwise, even if they possessed heavenly venerable tier treasures, they could not possibly have lasted this long. Unfortunately, the treasures in their possession were not heavenly venerate tools, after all. There would ultimately come a time when they would be exhausted completely, and then they would be overwhelmed by the battle prowess of the pseudo-heavenly venerates. "What are you looking at? Move!" one of them shouted. If it had not been to help Ling Han come in, they would not have had to release such powerful attacks, which meant that they were now extremely strained. This man's name was Duba. Ling Han chuckled. "You should be more polite to your savior." Savior. Duba was close to madness. As Ling Han arrived, he brought over 100 pseudo-heavenly venerates with him, causing the pressure on them to multiply a good many times over. What kind of savior was this? Yet AMU's heart jolted. "You've encountered Du Shi,"